Hi guys, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on wherever you're joining us from. We have a couple of very engaging hours lined up for you, and we are starting with a bit of an info session on the Global Policy Diplomacy Sustainability Fellowship, right after which we have a panel discussion on what to do for an LLM, how to go about an LLM, and if some of you are still at that stage when you're making a decision, whether you should go for an LLM. In that panel, we'll be joined by Ms. Roshan Tara Jaiswal, who holds an LLM from Cambridge, University of Cambridge, and Mrs. Sukriti Gandhi, who holds an LLM from Berkeley Law. But before that, that will be in some time. Before that, we would start with our GPODS info session, where my co-director and I, Arpit, who's here, and whose video seems to be stuck, we'll take you through a little about what the fellowship entails. What is this GPODS fellowship? How have we been able to make such a difference over such a short period of time? During this introduction, the first half of the info session, we are joined by Vidhi Sharma, who's a GPODS fellow. So you do not have to take our word for it. We have a fellow who's been a GPODS fellow speaking with you directly for it. So that being said, I think Arpit's back. Over to you, Arpit.
Sure. Hi, guys. My name is Arpit Chaturvedi. I'm the co-director of the GPODS Fellowship. And GPODS, as you know, the word stands for Global Policy Diplomacy and Sustainability. And that is our theory of change for the world. I'm sure a lot of you are following the crisis that's happening in Afghanistan. A lot of you are probably wondering how can we get better at Olympics the next time around. A lot of you are probably bothered by the air pollution, the water pollution, the food adulteration that you see. Many of you are concerned about the fact that how do we deal with the slow movement of the government? Why aren't the corporates and the governments and the civil society working together to make real change on the ground? Now, these are complex issues. These are what typically you'd call wicked problems. And if that is the problem, then our solution is threefold. Our solution is that you would need the decision-making, I don't want to use the word the decision-making elites, but then the people who are making the decisions, you would need those people to be well-versed in the three disciplines of public policy, diplomacy, and sustainability. And that is what our fellowship is all about. So our long-term vision for this fellowship is that we should be able to create a cohort, a group of people who are well-versed in these three things. They could be in international organizations, they could be in governments, they could be in NGOs, they could be in startups. But they should be well versed with all of these three things, because if you look at the real nature of any of our problems, so look at things like climate change, it's a sustainability problem, or air pollution in specific, it's a sustainability problem for sure. But what is the best way to deal with the air pollution? Is it to just have a Pigouvian tax? Is it to have carbon credits? Or is it something else? Is it to just have a pure ban on any industry that pollutes? Now, it also becomes a public policy problem. Now, once you've selected that, okay, am I going to ban it? Am I going to trade it? Am I going to tax it? Then it's not just you who's going to solve the problem. So just one country solving for air pollution does not change the world, because the environment is such where if out of the 193 countries, if 192 of them are not working and just one of them is working to solve the problem, nothing's really going to change. So you need to convince other countries to come on board with your solutions. If you've talked about cap and trade, if that's your solution, then you would need other countries to trade with. So there comes the whole aspect of diplomacy. And similarly, for each and every of the complex wicked problems that you see, it is not just a sustainability problem. It is not just a diplomacy problem. It's not just a public policy problem. You need all three. So each of these is necessary, but an insufficient part of the equation. All right. GPODS started out as an initiative where Ishan and we were sitting, and we both came. We both studied in various places. Combined, I think we've studied in private schools, public schools, private universities, public universities. Ishan graduated from Stanford. I graduated from Cornell. So it's been quite an educational journey that we've had. And after interacting with so many people and been through so many of the systems, what we realized that public policy education in India is missing on a number of things. Number one is that it's missing out on the global output, and that's where the global and the global policy diplomacy and sustainability fellowship comes from. With us, it's an online 3-month fellowship program. And since it's an online program, we get fellows from about 8 different countries every time. So you're almost in a mini Ivy League sort of an environment where your classmates, your other fellows are accomplished people from all over the world. We have mentors from all over the world. Mentors, typically we have 40 to 50 mentors for each of the fellowship program, and all of them, they come from the top organizations, top institutions. I think if you were to draw out a list of the top 100 universities in the world, we would have a mentor from each one of them, really. So whether it's the Harvards or it is the Oxfords or LSEs, we will have it all. Now, the logic behind our fellowship is as follows, that this is something that I keep telling people, that content-wise, our fellowship is divided into 3 things: public policy, diplomacy, and sustainability. Structure-wise, our fellowship is divided into 3 things again, and that is exposure, education, and skill building. And exposure is something that you get from mentorship. So the mentors that you have in our fellowship, we'll quickly talk about them later on as well. But then these are the folks who will sit with you, share their experiences. They'll connect you to various places. They'll guide you on how you get into colleges. They'll share their life experiences with you in their mentor lectures. They'll share the research with you in their mentor lectures. And mentorship is to give you exposure. A lot of times people come into the fields of public policy or sustainability or law, and they would not even know what are the various aspects or various career tracks that may be open for them. And that you understand by understanding other successful people's career trajectories. And you'll be surprised, maybe Vidhi can weigh in on this, that we see so many gazillion types of career trajectories amongst these mentors that it's absolutely mind-boggling as to how a person who was in the Indian police or was a lawyer somewhere in Costa Rica got to become the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. There's no clear career trajectory to that, and everyone and anyone can become that. Now, the second part is about knowledge. So mentorship takes care of exposure and networks. Knowledge is taken care of by our courses, and we have 3 courses that we teach. Probably we can scroll down to the courses bit. So we'll talk about the team. Let's talk about the fellowship first. Our team is awesome. I can just tell you that. So we have 3 courses over here. The courses are Comparative Public Administration, International Political Economy and Diplomacy, and Global Common Seminar Series. So as you see, these 3 courses, they form the backbone of our knowledge part of the equation. Comparative Public Administration is a course that I teach. I've taught that course at various institutions. Recently, I taught it. I teach it at the San Francisco State University every now and then. I taught it at another fellowship with the JKLU University in Massachusetts online a couple of days back. This is your core public policy course. Then you have another course on international political economy and diplomacy, which is co-taught by a number of our colleagues who are from LSE, from Cambridge, from Cornell. And then some diplomats also come in to teach you this course. And then you have the third course on global seminar on sustainability and climate change. And that's the course that Ishan teaches, and maybe Ishan can talk a little about that.
Yeah, so guys, again, I am very aware of the audience. Now, let me first preface whatever Arpit is saying with a bit of an informational uh, tidbit that you guys might find useful. Right at the outset, the most number of questions, the most queries we get are whether I can apply.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want to clarify right away. Now, I know that majority of us, including myself in this gathering, are lawyers, but Vidhi, who is a fellow, isn't. And that's something to tell you that it isn't just related to lawyers. It isn't just for lawyers. However, lawyers make up a significant part of our cohort. And also law as a subject is something that, like every other subject, but law more sincerely flows through public policy, through sustainability, through international relations and diplomacy. So that is something that I just wanted to clarify and preface everything before I talk about the course itself. So one thing that and we'll have a fellow's insights with these insights on all of this, and we have a formal introduction lined up for her, which we'll go through as well, because now the tables have turned and we will be introducing our fellows. But the Global Common Seminar Series on Sustainability and Climate Change comes from a place where we do not assume, and none of these courses do, but especially the Sustainability Seminar Series that the fellowship offers, that does not assume knowledge. It does not assume that all of our fellows know about climate science and risk assessment and climate modeling and all of that. So quite literally, and I'm giving a large chunk of my lecture series away, but my first lecture is just what is environment. And that's the ground level zero, that's where we start at, that's where we build up from. And our final lecture is climate change and public health. So you do that whole journey in each of these courses of coming in as a newbie, as a rookie, as someone who's passionate about a certain thing, as someone who probably does not know the details of a certain thing as much as they'd want to. And then we break it down.
Okay, Ishan, if I can add one thing to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we have really cracked, and I can tell you that this is something that we have learned from the pedagogy in higher education in the US, is that, typically what you'd find is that in courses, they'd start at a basic level and they'll suddenly, become difficult. But over here, we have taken special attention pedagogically that you start and your progress is gradual. And by the time you're ending the course and you look back, you'd realize that, oh, I've come so far. So you would not, as Ishan said, you would not have a lot of information about these things. All of these things, the examples that we use, the concepts that we use, they are things that you will be doing in lectures already. So we'll start from ground zero and we'll take it up gradually.
Yeah, I agree. I also apologize for Arpit's internet, guys. We've been able to crack one of the most important educational fellowships of the world. We haven't been able to solve the Wi-Fi issues at Arpit's place. Okay, so that's what the courses are about. Arpit will take you through the fellowships, and then we'll come to the part that excites most of us the most. Yeah. But before I do that, before we do that, and in fact, Arpit, let us cover the fellowship, the workshops, and then we'll move on to
perfect. So let me cover the workshop, and then we'll cover the rest of it. So essentially, what we've talked about is exposure and networks through mentorship. Courses, they lend towards your knowledge, and workshops, they lend towards your skills. So, right after you move out of the fellowship, the immediate thing that you can sell into the market are real skills. And the skills that we teach you in the fellowship are policy writing and communication, because we conducted surveys after surveys and focus group discussions at the World Economic Forum at Davos in 2020. That was the last time when it happened in person. And after consulting with corporates, after consulting with governments, we realized that there's a serious dearth of some of these skills. And one of them, the top number one of them being effective writing and communication. This is a skill that will take you very far in life. And we have a dedicated towards it. It's a workshop series. You have fundraising and grant writing, and the way that we do fundraising, we do it from a social entrepreneurship an NGO, not-for-profit sort of a perspective. So that's also a two-part series where one part looks at the business side of fundraising, another side looks at the non-profit side of fundraising.
So just to clarify, guys, I know that we lost Arpit there for a bit. Arpit was just talking about fundraising and how we deal with fundraising from both the angles, from the private sector, from the corporate side of things, but also from the civil society side of things. And just to wrap up what Arpit, the point Arpit had made earlier was, during our focus group discussions, one of the most important skills. Now, remember, there's a demand side to it, there's a supply side to it. All of us would want to be the top of the line when it comes to supply, when it comes in terms of academic knowledge or professional credentials. What is the demand side of it? The demand side of it, your employers, your future employers, our future employers, want us to have absolutely incredible policy writing skills, skills generally. And that, because I adhere to the fact that most of us are lawyers, all of us know that drafting, reading, convincing is such an important part of our core structures, our professional life. And hence, policy writing is something that we really pay heed to. And hence we have it as a workshop where we take you through all of these thinking approaches, writing approaches, what looks the best, what are the complete no-nos, how you should keep paragraphs small, how you should keep your sentences small, nitty-gritties of
how
things.
Do you cite your sources?
How do you make citations? Yeah. So all of those things are what we cover. Arpit, over to you, systems thinking.
Sure. So then the other bit is systems thinking and case studies in public policy. Take them together because that's about how do you solve complex problems. And we give you, most of the places would give you business management case studies. We are one of the few places where one of our mentors, Valentina Dotto, who splits her time between the UK and Italy, she specializes in applied public policy case studies, sustainability case studies, and we take you through a battery. Now we are
guys, I think we'll have to get used to this at some point. I'll also have to come to terms with the fact that I'll probably have to do all of the presentation while we wait for Arpit to come back. Let me also remind you, because I see that some of us are joining as we speak. So I'll just remind you that we have the LLM discussion happening in some time, which is going to take you through the GPODS fellowship. And on that note, because it is a fellowship which is all about the fellows, let me also get this out of the way. And it is my absolute pleasure to also introduce our eminent scholar, the GPODS fellow of the past, Vidhi Sharma, who continues to be a fellow, by the way. That's another thing that we'll tell you about in a bit. But Vidhi, with an educational background in economics, public policy, governance, sustainable business strategy, she has been working towards the social and public well-being from the past 4 years and has worked with the UNDP, Niti Aayog, Ministry of Finance. Vidhi is convinced that we need more empathy, kindness, and strive to contribute towards public policy, international affairs, and sustainability. She is determined to do her bit in leaving the world a better place to live in. And having said that, outside of this, there are quite a few professional credentials that she has. I do not know how much of them can be shared yet, if the final word is out or not. But Vidhi has been doing exceptionally well, and she has been working in the public policy space. Specifically, she was working in the digital policy space, and now it seems like she's venturing into other structures as well. So welcome, Vidhi. I don't know if you can unmute yourself, but while we fix Arpit's internet, I thought that we'll quickly introduce you as well. Arpit, are we back? Yeah.
Thank you for this very kind introduction, and thank you for having me here again. It's so nice to see you.
No, it's a pleasure, Vidhi, and there's a strategic reason why we have you here. And this is to all the people in the audiences. I was actually telling someone the other day that a lot of the times, every fellowship cohort, every time the applications open, a couple of emails that we get are, is this for real? Are you sure you're not joking? How can you have 50 mentors in 3 months? That sort of a thing. So at least now we have you who can validate that, no, this is a real thing and this is run officially and there's a legitimate expectation to graduate, and there are capstone projects and so many other things. So we have you as a buffer in case we come across as, not so legitimate.
No, I'm gonna stand strong behind you guys that everything that they say is true.
Okay. You should have at least heard us first, Vidhi. But thank you for the blind support.
Yeah.
Arpit, are we back?
I am back, but I'm going to keep my video off for a bit so that 8:30 to 9:30 in India is a jinx time for me. The internet always acts up. I've been in meetings.
It's not even 8 yet. You might want to.
Oh yeah, so all of the evening then.
Yeah. Okay, we were talking about systems thinking, Arpit.
Yeah, so I don't know if Vidhi wants to talk a little bit about the fellowship. The last thing I was talking about systems thinking is that complex problem solving is a great demand because there's just too much of simplistic solutions out there in the industry, and people want to really get people who can deal with complexity, and that's what we do through the case studies, through the systems thinking workshop. And now we have a new workshop added, which we had in this fellowship, and we're going to have in the next round of fellowship as well. That's the program design and evaluation workshop, and that also has gradually, been rated as one of the highest skills that the industry demands. That how do you design effective programs, and how do you, evaluate them? So yeah, over to Vidhi now.
Vidhi, your 2 cents about the fellowship, or maybe you should talk about the workshops and the case studies, which I'm sure you enjoy.
I have a lot to talk about.
Not 2 cents, Vidhi. We need more than that.
Yes.
Need $1 million.
Well, it was my favorite 3 months of this year so far, so I can talk about it a lot. And of this year, Arpit, come on.
Of this year, Arpit, let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
And that too, I said so far. So let's
Vidhi,
not.
why are you underselling us in the first statement?
How optimistic?
Well, I think for whatever next is coming because of you guys, and so it's gonna be great. I assume that GPODS has become a great part of my life, and thanks to both of you. But just to reiterate on all these points that you have said, and I am from a public policy background, but I had no, back knowledge of diplomacy or sustainability. And as Ishan said, that nobody assumes that you'll have knowledge. And I think it goes through that journey. And even after the end of that journey, it's not the knowledge that's expected out of you. It's probably the awareness or the will to do something with whatever we have discussed in these 3 months. And as easily as Ishan says that his first lecture is about what is environment, it is still one of my favorite lectures, Ishan. And I don't want to lose out that element of surprise for
No. You guys have to enroll. For the audiences, you have to enroll.
So I'm not going to tell that what you speak about, but that still is one of my favorite concepts that you teach in your first lecture. And that journey that we take to the last lecture of sustainability, where it still has resonated with me, where you just question us. So it's something that's specific to sustainability course that Ishan takes. Then I think public administration has always been close to my heart, but the way Arpit has given the tools, the methods, the frameworks, I think that is something that brings out this course entirely very differently. I've never enjoyed game theory before in my life the way Arpit have made me enjoy it. And I think the course itself. So I think it stands out, and I can say that for even diplomacy, the classes we have had with Jonathan and the mentors, I think it's a perfect blend of different subjects coming together. And then you blend in the workshops, case studies, so which you actually, whatever you talk, whatever you learn, you actually apply it, or you actually, think about it, that how do we actually put it to use when we are out in our jobs. So that has been a great experience. But what stands out, I believe, in this fellowship is the rich network that we become a part of eventually in these 3 months, be it the global mentors or the fellows, co-fellows. And, we have created this alum group now. And as you guys said, we've become a big family. So I think that's something that stands out in this fellowship, because we have learned a lot from each other. there were lawyers, there were engineers, mathematicians, you know who. And, you know, we all share so many different backgrounds and interests, but the common interest when it comes to all three subjects is something that excites everyone. So it's kind of, you know, finding your group to hang out with when you actually want to share your concern about climate or about strategic diplomacy or any and everything that this fellowship offers. So I think that's something that makes GPOD stands out. And I'm really happy that most of us are still in touch on a regular basis, that we chit chat to each other. But having said that about the fellowship, I think personally, I think I am fan of Arpit and Ishan. So they have now, I think I'm not gonna leave you guys, so I'll be a chief if you. So they have become mentors for a lifetime, and they have helped me in my professional journey or academic. I wrote a capstone. I'm still, you know, finalizing it, but I've worked Arpit like anything, and he has actually, you know, he's been on calls with me for 2 hours and said that this is what we're going to do, let's do this, let's do that. So, and Ishan. So for a professional mentor, or however you say, and I think Ishan has said that I am going to move to a new job soon, and Ishan has played a great role there. I'm moving into digital policy space, and I would share the news soon, but that, and it's a big achievement, and I've been, you know, and Ishan played a great role in that. I think after every interview, I used to call him before interview, after interview. So I think what has come with this fellowship is these two amazing guys in my life and the team. So the team that goes beyond, with, you know, that stands strong with GPODS, Aditi, Srishti, Rashi, everybody, and I'm sorry if I'm missing out you any names, but the team also is, they make you feel that you can reach out to them any.
Vasi is crying in some corner.
Vasi, I'm sorry, yeah, Vasi. So you can, you know, it just felt like in those 3 months and even beyond that, I never felt that, you know, I can't reach out to you guys, or if I needed help, either of you was there. So I think over and all, I think I will get overwhelmed now.
Thank you, Vidhi. In fact, we will come back to you with a couple of specifics. I just want to cover, because you.
This is the time we break down and.
Yeah, this is so for everyone in the audience. Vidhi mentioned a couple of very important things that I just want to take you through. And thank you, Vidhi, for all of your kindness. As I keep on saying, I think everyone in the GPODS fellowship team, cohort, Arpit himself, I think you are all bored by now, but we treat this as family. Every GPODS fellow is a family member to us, and you're always available for your family, and you help them out however you can. So I hope that you become a part of this family going forward. And I've already put a very not so subtle comment on the chat box with how to apply and how you should visit the website, so on and so forth. All right. Coming to mentorship, because Vidhi spoke about networking, and there are various kinds of networking that happens within the GPODS cohort, and I like to divide them in two ways. One is vertical networking, and let me talk about vertical networking first. You have, I invite all of you to check out the website, especially the lawyers in the group. I'm sure you're going to enjoy some of the names. We've had Supreme Court judges from, you know, Constitutional Court of Belgium, New South Wales, Supreme Court of Hawaii, 2 of them. And we have all of these judges who come along, who speak about, deliver a guest lecture, and all of the mentors come and deliver a guest lecture. And that's where GPODS is different from any other fellowship, or even better placed than some of the other educational institutes, because our guest lectures, our mentorship does not end with the guest lecture. It starts with the guest lecture. So after the guest lecture, you have interactive office hours with almost each of the mentors. Some of them might not be able to make it in their schedule, but almost all of the mentors give dedicated office hours. And what are these office hours, you ask? These office hours are like having a cup of coffee, virtual coffee, with this global leader who's come and taught you. So you may be sitting across from a Supreme Court judge or Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, or the CEO of a major private corporation, and you could ask them about your academic pursuits, your professional pursuits, their life experiences. I think Vidhi already referred to the mathematician from her cohort who actually asked a senior MIT professor to show him around in his library, and he made that professor take out all of the books and what all the books were and so on and so forth. So, yes, exactly. So that is the vertical networking that I was referring to. You get to network with people who are way ahead in their professional careers, who've been there for longer, who are global leaders who come and speak with you about various things. And that's where you start networking. So I always say this, do not think that networking is, okay, all right, I have added him on LinkedIn and that's about it. No, you have to inculcate that relationship. You have to develop that relationship, and office hour is a great way to do that. The second is the horizontal networking that we do. And this is where we want all of you to know that each of the GPODS fellow is handpicked after your profiles have come on board, after so many things that are taken into considerations while making the decision. So for us, each of you is a global change maker of the future, which means that when you are sitting in your home interacting with a class full of fellows who have been handpicked, you are actually communicating with future leaders. And that means that you must have the wherewithal to interact with each other or with other cohorts of the past, with people like Vidhi who are always very forthcoming and welcoming. I know that Vidhi also is very busy keeping up with all the LinkedIn messages she's getting, inquiring about the GPODS fellowship. So you get to interact with people who are your age, but it does not stop with interaction within the GPODS cohort or within the alumni section. You're also now interacting with, for example, we did an international mixer with Terry. We did one with Copenhagen Business School. We recently did one with King's College London. So what we try and do is we try giving you a network of your peers from outside, people you would not be interacting with, but they're your contemporaries. You can, make bonds. You can somehow reciprocate knowledge. You can start having conversations, talk about things that interest you, so on and so forth. And since we're talking about networking, I've discussed horizontal, which is your generation, vertical, which is someone from another generation you get to network with, and this very, very cool concept, which I am personally very proud of, this thing called a virtual cafe. Now, what we do at GPODS is we have an open link only for the fellows. And this link does not require anyone to start the meeting, so on and so forth. So what you can do is you can message on the group saying that, listen, I'm chilling, I have nothing to do, what are you up to? And you can get a couple of the other fellows to join in, just, have a cup of coffee or beer, whatever floats your boat. And you have an interaction with these fellows. So there's a go-to place where you can literally bond at any point of time. You'll have enough people who are sitting idle around the world to have a good discussion over virtual cafe. All right, so that's
also means that we give you ample free time to think and hang out and build your communities.
Yes. Okay, one thing that I wanted to mention, which is an important aspect, and again, I'm just towing the line that Vidhi was talking about, capstone project. The only graduating requirement that the GPODS fellowship has is this thing called a capstone project. And the capstone project is basically a 7 to 10, 5 to 10 page project, written piece that you have to develop over the 3 months. And we have specific deadlines. So, after the first month, you have to give us the topic. After the second month, you have to give us the structure. But the idea is for you to have a publishable product by the end of this cohort. And especially remember, because I know a lot of you are interested in an LLM, publications matter a lot when you're applying for future studies. So the capstone project could be on a topic that interests you, on a topic that has been touched upon by a mentor, something that we've covered in one of the sessions or lectures. And you can write about that particular topic in your 7 to 9, 10 page capstone project. We obviously help you with the project. We help you with review. We help you with edits. We also try and get it published whenever we can and whenever it is possible. It depends on the subject of the capstone as well. But a capstone, the biggest takeaway for a capstone is that over these 3 months, because you learn so much, you get to think so much about so many things. Without realizing you're imbibing so much, it is important to put all of these thoughts in a paper. And that capstone eventually comes out decently easily because you've immersed yourself so much. And I'm also, the second thing I'm very proud of is the tagline that GPODS has, which is immerse, interact, involve, evolve. And immersion is a very important part of the capstone project. You'll have a capstone project, you'll have a publishable product that you could publish otherwise and turn into a research piece, whatever you wish to do with it. In the past, we've had fellows who've published the capstone projects in some of the leading journals from around the globe. So that's just something that I wanted to discuss about. Over to you, Arpit.
Sure. So we've talked to you about the courses. There you have it. We've also talked to you about the workshops. Now let's talk to you about mentorship. You've already understood the format of that mentors come in for a guest lecture and then they do interactive office hours. I think my internet is dropping off.
I was just going to say, Arpit, maybe you want to switch off the video because I think it was working fine when the video was off.
Okay. Better now?
Yes.
Okay. So let's just talk about some of the mentors whom we've had, and this is really fascinating. In total, I think now we have crossed the 100-120 mark in terms of the mentors that we
actually
had.
I was just thinking about that, and to all the people in the audiences, we actually, if you look at the cohort for which all of you would be applying to, we've actually crossed around 160 mentors in total by then. So we're looking at global leaders who've gone beyond 116 number, who come and I do not want to use the term coach you, but interact with you, discuss with you, so on and so forth. Sorry, Arpit, go ahead.
Yes. And there, it's very important to understand the difference of between mentorship and coaching. Coaching is done in the specific field that you're already in. And mentorship is somebody who can talk to you at a distance and guide you. So, like if you're a cricketer, you'll find a cricket coach. But if you want to find a mentor, you might also find somebody who's just been generally a great sports person. So, well, back to the kind of people that we have as mentors. So you find people who are, ambassadors of different countries, representing different countries, people from NATO, people from ministries of various ministries of environment, ministry of foreign affairs, youth ministries across the world. You find people coming from the army, people working in think tanks, then you have people coming in from corporate. So we have invited a number of people from Fortune 500 firms like the Tatas, like BMW, like Volkswagen. You have the editor-in-chief of Hindustan Times, so a lot of journalists coming in. So, the list is actually quite huge. The important part over here.
I was just going to say that it isn't, as you guys can imagine, we cannot go through 160 mentors. It would not be possible for us. But what
we'd have to publish a whole roster and a whole diary.
We need a separate dedicated info session only for
okay, so but the important part over here is, guys, and this we had alluded to earlier, is that once you're in the fellowship, once you're in a fellow, you're fellow for life. What does that mean? Is that if you're in cohort 3, or let's say if you were in cohort which was Vidhi's cohort, then you can also attend all of the mentorship lectures in cohort 3. And majority of the mentors, there are a few mentors who get repeated, but a majority of the mentors are folks who are coming on. So you can keep adding to your network every time. And every now and then we see Parikshit, Arundhati, etc. from earlier cohorts. coming into our current mentorship lectures and just attending and just speaking to our mentors. And that's fascinating because you can keep growing. You would always know that, okay, these are the mentors who are going to come into this upcoming cohort, and you can attend all of their lectures. So once you're a fellow, we don't charge you to anything extra to attend any of the future fellowships. So it's almost like, you're in this community for life once you're there. Cool. And then we have, Ishan has already talked about the virtual cafes, international mixers. We have this really fun game nights every now and then. This time we've also, experimented with some app-based games where, you're supposed to log into an app and everybody plays a game. It's super
house fun. and whatnot. Like you have to solve a mystery and all of that online. So it's pretty cool.
I think one cool thing that we have, and I don't know if we have it on the slide over here or not, is the International Ideation Summit. That is a right here on Q. So that's a 2-day symposium. What does it have? It is towards the end of your fellowship, your opportunity to shine, your opportunity to showcase your work and sit in panels as speakers and comment authoritatively on issues related to public policy, diplomacy, and sustainability, while your alumni, while your parents, family members, our partner think tanks, our partner organizations, your mentors come in to listen to you. So this is the time when you're graduating. And am I audible?
Yeah.
This is the time when you're graduating and the spotlight is on you. And not only here, but we give you a number of opportunities to be speaking at UN Habitat. Our fellows have also spoken at the Indian Forum for Public Diplomacy, at the New York Climate Week, at the London Climate Action Week. And some of our fellows have also spoken directly to the President of the UN General Assembly and at the International Organization on Migration. So we give you a number of chances to also speak and research about things in detail, communicate about them effectively, and get established as an expert in those fields. So this is like a platform to put you in that space by doing. And capstones, just to give you a flavor of the kind of capstone projects that we have this time. We have capstone projects with Space Foundation, with UNCTAD, then with a number of think tanks, with a number of grassroots organizations. So, you have this opportunity to apply all that you're learning in the fellowship in form of consulting for a real organization. And you can do your individual capstone, which is more theoretical if you're planning for a PhD or you're planning for a master's program as well. We ensure at GPODS that our communications are seamless. If the internet gives up, that's hard, but then we still keep all of the lectures recorded. So, we get a lot of questions that, what if I miss a lecture? What happens then? So it's simple. We record all of our lectures. Everything except for the office hours is recorded and it's available to you. It's not open to the public. It's just available to you on a learning management system. We communicate very frequently through multiple layers of channels, including Slack, WhatsApp, emails, etc., etc. So that's what we believe in, over communicating, and that's what we do over here. And next slide, please.
So, Arpit, before we move on, let me specify this a little. A lot of the fellows are working professions, and a lot of them are actually practicing advocates. Even our current fellows, you can reach out to. I think Pushkar Pushkar is here. Maybe we can ask him to unmute himself. A lot of them are practicing advocates, and a lot of the queries that we get are about, will I be able to manage this fellowship along with my working life, a full-time commitment to work? And that's what we tell everyone. And I think PK has unmuted himself and he can also add on to this. Hi, nice to see you, PK. But the idea is that we have structured the classes in a way that working professionals can take part in these things. So,
Yes.
Vidhi, PK, both of you, if you'd like to comment on this aspect of the fellowship.
Full-time students as well as working professionals. That's how we organize it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a full-time job, but I never felt that it's becoming too much. I was always excited to join the classes, and I think times also are quite suitable to most of the time zones that people are in. So, but it was never a hindrance that I'm in a full-time job. So, yeah, maybe Pushkar can elaborate.
I go with Vidhi on that as well, because most of the times when I used to miss at least one or two lectures in the beginning, I used to quickly follow up on the recording. But then I made a point to attend the live lectures because the timing fits so well that you're starting your first lecture at around 5:30 or 6, and the second one perhaps at 8:30 or something, so that you're done with your work and you're comparatively free. And most of most of you won't believe, even on Saturdays we attend lectures. It could be shocking how people have the energy to come on a Saturday call, but somehow I don't miss my but today I missed. I'm so sorry, Arpit, I missed the presentation today. But what I'm saying is, it's super fun that you get to attend all these lectures.
Thank you, PK. So I think we have about, say, 10 minutes left before we welcome Roshan Tara, who's already joined us, and Sukriti Kanti. So before we do that, if there are any questions, guys, you are free to write them in the chat box. And while we wait for questions, given the fact that we have the pleasure of having Vidhi with us, we would keep on engaging her. I would want to ask Vidhi, if you had to pick out two things from the GPODS fellowship. I'm putting in the spot because it's being live streamed. It's a public platform.
You signed up for it, Vidhi.
Yes. So you have to give us an answer.
It's very difficult. Sophie's choice, is it?
Okay, one thing.
I will say two now, please. I think mentors, the global network of mentors that comes along, and I think Ishan has said that one-on-one office hour is something that comes along with lectures or additional to lectures. So that is something that keeps you. I'm sorry for the background noise. It just keeps you very engaged. That you are whatever you're learning courses, you're learning new concepts, but you are actually able to understand from the people who are leading in these fields. And globally, experiences vary from region to region, from organization to organization, but I think you have a fair diverse group of mentors, which gives you a very different view on what's happening on diplomacy, sustainability, on public administration. So I think that's something I would choose one of the favorite things. And then I think second is, of course, you guys. And I do not say it just because of the courses that you teach, but I think the overall guidance that comes along with the courses that you teach. So I think that's something that I am fan of GPODS, that you not only teach us that this is what climate change is, or this is what sustainability is, or this is what game theory is, but you make this as a journey for us, as a mentor, as a guidance, and even beyond these three subjects, even in professional life as well. So I think that those are the two very different things about GPODS, other than, of course, the courses and the subject matter that we actually go through.
Thank you, Vidhi. I'm quite surprised that you came up with that so early. I thought it would require some time. Obviously, these are the two standouts. Maybe we have to work on some of the other aspects for them to compete better. Okay, I need to clarify something, because again, this is something that we get very often. One, GPODS is a very, very good place if you want to take up higher education at some point. And that is why, guys, it's no coincidence that we're talking about LLM, and we've spoken about an MPP, MPA degree earlier. There's a reason why we're clubbing info session, GPODS info session with the event on how to apply for an LLM and whether you should apply for an LLM. It gives you an insight on what it is like to do a master's degree from outside, or not just a master's degree, a doctoral degree, whatever you wish to pursue later. And proof of the pudding is in the pie. You'll see that a lot of our fellows, almost in every cohort, get through. As soon as the cohort gets over, we keep receiving emails and calls that, I applied and I've got through Columbia, I applied, I've got through LSE, I applied, I got through Michigan. I don't know if we have some of them here, but that's the kind of thing. So it's a very good stepping stone to get into a good master's or a good doctoral program, because it gives you that experience. Almost all the major universities, professors are your mentors. So you also interact with those mentors who probably will be sitting at your admissions decision table. And it gives you your profile, a research work experience, that sort of a thing. Because now you have worked in so many fields and you have chosen your path after considering so many things. And that's more at a personal level, but also at a professional level. That makes for a very good SOP, that I've studied this, I've explored this, I've also interacted with so-and-so. And now I've decided to apply for a master's or an LLM or an MPP or an MBA, as in the case of quite a few of my fellows. So that's one thing that I wanted to clarify. You also have the advantage of if need be, and if everything goes well, and if we are convinced and satisfied, and I must tell you that Arpit and I are both very easily convinced and satisfied as well. But if we are convinced and satisfied, we can also, you also have the option of having a recommendation letter from the both of us, which obviously, if you're applying to our respective universities, Cornell and Stanford, that alumni echo means a lot. The second thing that I wanted to mention was mentorship, because I still think that a lot of us are confused about, how does this hand-holding work? Am I appointed a mentor? So if there are 30 fellows, 50 mentors, am I given a mentor at the beginning? That's not how it works, and that's the beauty of our structure. Every mentor is a mentor to you. Everyone who comes, delivers a guest lecture, delivers an office hour, is a mentor to each of you, each of the GPODS fellows. So we have office hours which are open to every fellow, and we have segments divided into office hour, where some of you come from, say, 6:30 IST to 7:30 IST, and so on and so forth, and you can have your personal queries answered. And I think that's about it. Arpit, is there anything?
And just one thing, if I can add to what you said, Ishan, I'm going to turn off my video so that it doesn't disturb. So the reason why we have you interact with so many mentors is also based on a lot of sound research. There's a lot of research in terms of organizational development and networks and how people advance in their careers, is that the more diverse your networks are, the more diverse will be the information that will come your way. So if you have a mentor, or if you have two mentors who are mostly around focused on the same field, then you'll get the same sort of information, which, over some period of time can get stale. But over here, this is your opportunity to, cross-pollinate ideas with so many different mentors, that this is the time when you really start thinking differently, and you start getting in the know-how of things that you would otherwise not be in the know-how of. And, information is progress in the world that we are living in. So that's what it is.
But if I may add, I think most of the mentors are kind enough to even take that relationship beyond
Absolutely.
the fellowship, and I think in office hours we have asked all sorts of questions to them, be it about, I know that, you are from Stanford and Arpit is from Cornell, but all those experiences that they have also, they are very kind enough to share about their education or about the journey that they've taken. So,
and the difficulties that we went through.
Yes, definitely. So I think most of them are kind enough to share everything that they can, which help fellows.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, in case there aren't any questions, I'd like to thank Vidhi We'll start our LLM event in a bit, but remember, please flood her LinkedIn messages if you want to inquire more about the GPODS fellowship. I'll also put down Arpit's and mine, the contact numbers, our respective contact numbers, and you can reach out to us directly. As I have made abundantly clear throughout the cohorts, we are annoyingly approachable. So if you have any doubts, please feel free to write to us directly, and we're always happy to clarify. I'll also put down my email ID if you want to reach out to us. And yeah, with that being said, I think I'd like to thank Vidhi for joining us in the last cohort and joining us today. We are very proud of each of our GPODS fellows, and given the fact that Vidhi has cracked one of the most prestigious
international organizations
recently, we might be a little more biased towards Vidhi. But
all thanks to you. All thanks to you. And thank you for having me here. And for others who are here, I'm more than happy to answer one-on-one if they have any questions over LinkedIn or however they want to connect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now it seems it's over to the lawyers and out with the policy folks. So you and I, we need to move out.
Yeah. All right. Have a good session ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Vidhi.
Thank you, Vidhi. No, I was joking. We can hang around here.
No,
we have a happy hour after this.
That I'll join for some time.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Vidhi. And guys, we're going to play a short video for you. In about 4 minutes, we'll start a discussion on LLMs and all that LLMs entail. That being said, could I request the team to play the video, please? We'll have to fix the sound.
I think you'll have to play it again by enabling computer sound.
Yeah. Guys, I assure you this does not happen in our lectures. We're very, very well structured when it comes to our GPODS fellowship lectures, generally.
This is a place where, you are not really a student. We are not really teachers. We are all coming together in a community of fellowship. And that's the reason why we call it a fellowship, where we think that everybody makes knowledge or builds knowledge based on the ideas that they already have in their mind.
The problem is greenhouse gas emissions that affect the temperature of the climate.
The agricultural land, places which we use to grow crops, have a fair amount of saltwater intrusion.
Actually, the very close cooperation between the United States and China to come to an agreement to how to operationalize this principle into the future.
Policy making body on environment at the same level with the General Assembly for all other issues globally. But for environment, it established the United Nations Environment Assembly.
IOI, or impact on investment. So that's essentially what this, your management really should all be about. You're trying to maximize the impact on investment.
So you might define it as coordinated and synchronized action that often deliberately targets democratic states and institutions.
Someone has said, never let a crisis go to a waste. So we are in a huge crisis. Let's not waste it, and instead build from it, build safer, better, and in a more holistic fashion.
You have to go back to the basics each time you feel you run into an ambiguous situation. And that's where things like critical thinking and problem solving and root cause problem solving comes in. Which, for example, starts with defining first what the problem is rather than getting into solving the problem.
We're seeing the limits of the multilateral system as it was conceived 75 years ago being reached. and you see a big fight going on many levels, including these disarmament affairs. On, let's say, I always say it's basically 3 levels that we see fights going on here in the UN, including on disarmament affairs. The first is on language, the second is on money, and the third one is on positions.
At the moment, the world is on a path of 3.5 to 4 degrees C temperature rise. Commitments are not enough, and I think there is a lot of effort is required globally and in terms of national efforts.
Every year I went to the NASCOM annual conference. Fantastic. You met people who were thinking out of the line, out of the box. It's not a small box, but a huge box and so forth. It shows that India has a capacity to develop a global industry that can service the whole world, the whole corporate world.
New technologies are emerging and being developed at a faster pace than ever before. So I do think that we are going to need to do a kind of a bigger job than we are doing today in a way to get new kinds of arms control in a broad sense to work on, to discuss about the role of these.
Science of attribution, of being able to say, has changed so much that now you are able to look at the probability of events happening and the link to climate change, the link to fossil fuels. We're seeing incredible things happening in courts these days.
Companies like Microsoft is a good example that have committed even not just to become net zero, but they want to sort of offset their historic emissions as well. So those are incredibly ambitious targets, and that's good. We want that ambition, we want that awareness.
The fact that the G7 came together and pledged an additional 1 billion doses of the COVID vaccine next year on top of the 1 billion that's already been promised. This is important. Of course, there's been criticism saying that's not enough. Of course it's not enough, but still, that's 1 billion.
GPODS has helped us build such a rich network of professionals who are truly global and, are actually working at the cutting edge of solving some real policy problems.
I am thoroughly enjoying the fellowship. I think it's keeping me enthusiastic, lively. I'm really excited. I look forward to lectures. I look forward talking to Arpit and Ishan more often. So I'm really glad that I am a part of GPODS. I took the right decision.
The ability of GPODS to actually stimulate us intellectually is what best qualifies and characterizes it. And I feel personally, for me, it has really broadened my horizons in the sense that I've been empowered and enabled to now think beyond what just my law degree would otherwise have enabled me to do on ground. And it's really sort of appended all new avenues and all new ways I can really sort of chip in to realize my vision of sustainability.
So grateful to have had this opportunity over the last 3 months to get to know you all and also just have such incredible mentorship and intellectual stimulation. Coming out of grad school, I think I was really lacking that in my life, and to be able to have such dynamic conversations and learn so much from my peers and be pushed to think about policy and the environment and sustainability in such different ways has been such a gift, and I am so appreciative of that. And I'm excited that one day maybe I can turn around and be a mentor to the next cohorts of fellows. So thank you for setting me up to potentially be that one day. And as Swasti said, looking forward to, and as Ishan said also, this is not the end, this is the beginning of the journey, and looking forward to continuing it all with you.
As I said, Venezuelan migrant women, and they are caught in between a situation where their original healthcare system of their home country is not adequate to meet the needs and expectations of COVID-19. So they historically have been migrants to neighboring countries such as Colombia, but because of the restrictions on equal access to healthcare as well as other universal human rights in Colombia, it becomes a precarious situation for these migrant women who are looking for safe jobs, who are trying to avoid gender-based violence, which unfortunately is very frequently occurring over there, on top of not having that healthcare access, and are actually, in most cases, forced to return home to Venezuela. And during this pandemic, it's not good. And generally,
I would like to look at a case study of Cambodia in Thailand. In Thailand, in 2018, the government actually set aside a social security program that also provides an health security for the 1/5% of the urban poor, and it is called National Health Equity Program. And in this equity program, it comes with two facets. Number one, it's helped to guarantee the health security of the people of the 1/5% of urban poor and the poorest of the poor in the country, and also help to empower the hospitals and the district hospitals with equipment, with facilities that could aid them in attending to the urban poor.
The knowledge sharing that's happening, and it's not just learning from the mentors and the people who are taking the lectures, but it's also learning from the fellows and learning from your peers. And I think that's really amazing. And the fact that all the fellows come, like we all come from such diverse professional backgrounds, so that's really a huge plus.
It was an amazing experience because I would say I've come from a totally quantitative background, and this program has given my mind some great wings, because I've met mentors from different walks of life and transcending many different avenues of human endeavor. So in that sense, I would say it's total diversification, and very, very thankful to GPODS and to the fellow mates as well, Swasti, Vidhi, and everyone else, bringing together thoughts and ideas from environment, sustainability, refugees, and analytics, and law as well. So great. Thank you so much. And just a quick, marketing stuff is you can add whichever adjective you want to add, whatever terminology you want to use, and it will fit the acronym. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for staying on. Every time we have such a presentation, I am reminded that we have to cut down the video. It's way too long. And I think that's what I was writing in the chat box as well. We're probably over by a couple of minutes in that video. But now for the main course of today's discussion. I know that all of you have been patiently waiting for this session where we will be discussing all of our experiences as an LLM student in different continents, different schools, and various things that will help you decide whether you should or you shouldn't pursue an LLM, and if you choose to pursue an LLM, how to go about it. So those are the things that we'll try to uncover. Let me first welcome, before I actually welcome the panelists, let me first tell you that I do hold an LLM in environmental law and policy from a university called Stanford University, but it's been donkey years, guys. I graduated before I had gray in my beard, so it's been quite some time. So it's best to have people who are recent graduates, who applied recently, to answer more current questions, and that is why I feel a little out of the place having two absolute rock stars in their own respective fields here to help us dissect an LLM degree with all of you. A couple of things before I do go on to the introductions. One, please feel free to ask questions. This is not a one-way monologue. I'm sure Sukriti, Roshan Tara, and I speak for myself as well. When I say that we're tired of speaking about this on one-way communications over phone calls, over LinkedIn messages. So if there are any specific questions, please feel free to ask them. If you just want to come unmute yourself and say hi, that's absolutely okay as well. And the other thing is, we're bored at looking at ourselves. So if you can turn on the videos, it'll be pretty awesome. We can have a conversation like we do, like we could if we were sitting across from each other. So that being said, I have the pleasure of welcoming how things have turned. I never thought that I would be doing this, but Mrs. Sukriti Gandhi. She is a Berkeley Law graduate, class of 2020, former legal policy operations agent at Twitter. As I mentioned already, she completed her LLM from Berkeley Law just last year. So current and fresh with all of your answers to all of the questions. Sukriti pursued her master's at Berkeley Law with a specialization in tech laws, and until recently was working at Twitter as a legal policy operations agent back in San Francisco. So she's left India for greener pastures, it seems. She obtained her law degree from Amity Law School, Delhi in 2017. After that, she worked as a lawyer and handled matters ranging from consumer disputes to commercial as well as cases of constitutional relevance. Her academic interests include media, tech laws, especially data protection laws. She's also, I must also thank her because, you know, anything has to be really priced if you have to wake up at 7:30 in the morning and do that. And that's what Sukriti is doing for us. So we welcome you, Sukriti. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's so good to see you guys, and I'm happy to talk about my experience. I do have to say that my experience is was slightly cut short because of the pandemic, but I am completely in favor of LLM if that's what people want to do. It's a great time to kind of discover it.
That's actually something that we will address because, you know, a lot of the applicants here with us would be looking at an LLM with, you know, possibly being affected by the pandemic and travel restrictions and so on and so forth. I'll also quickly make a note of it so that I do cover it. Moving on to our other rock star in the room, we're joined by Roshan Tara Jaiswal. Now, she holds the distinction of also having a scholarship when she went there. So some of you might have questions on scholarships, and Roshan is the right person to ask all of those questions. She's a Commonwealth Shared Cambridge Trust Scholar and pursued her LLM at the University of Cambridge with a specialization in international law. She completed her integrated bachelor's in arts and law from Amity Law School, Delhi IP University, with a focus in international and corporate law. After graduation, she worked with the former Union Law Minister and a senior advocate for a period of 2 years. Working in the area of human rights and corporate litigation. She was instrumental in espousing very important national and international human rights causes like asylum for Rohingyas in India, dignity of the elderly, and the cause of custodial torture. Her major research focus is refugee laws in South Asia and how religion plays an important role for granting asylum in India. So Roshan, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you've had to probably take out time from a very busy schedule where you're working in multiple fields and multiple offices, it seems. So thank you for taking out the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I think I like talking about the LLM experience. I don't think it's talked about enough in India. At least it wasn't when I applied, which is why I had no idea when I applied, which is why I love talking about it so that everybody knows. That's the only objective I have.
Thank you, Roshan. So we're going to make sure that we make the most of the next 45 minutes as much as we can. And we must also be conscious of the fact that Sukriti's morning rituals would probably start in 45 minutes. So we need to give her all the time she needs. Now, let me first ask a more generic question. And again, guys, I want to remind you, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box or mute yourselves and ask those. I'll start at the beginning. An LLM, as in my case, was almost a well thought of decision that I have to pursue an LLM eventually. I think in Sukriti's case as well, it was pretty much on the cards that she will apply for an LLM at some point. How do you decide whether you want to, when do you decide, when did you guys decide that you want to pursue an LLM? Is there a too early stage to decide? Is there a too late stage to decide? How does that work? Let's go to Sukriti first. Sukriti, why don't we hear from you about this?
That's actually a really good question because the timing of it is absolutely essential in my opinion. How I decided was I always knew I wanted a master's degree, but that wasn't enough. There are factors that you have to think about, whether you want to come back and work, or do you want to stick around, maybe find some opportunities if you can, which may not always be the case, but you want to put your best foot forward when you're applying to these universities, because you have competition from all over the world. So what I thought, in my opinion, and I think seemed to work for Roshan and I both, was that getting some work experience, it gives you a very holistic idea of what you like, what you don't, what you want to do, what kind of jobs would you want to pursue, wherever it is. So working and getting a professional recommendation and one academic recommendation was a good mix, because it shows that you have more experience. You're not just like straight out of school, straight out of college, and you can work in dynamic environments, I think.
All right, so that also kind of answers the WorkX question, but I'll come to that question quite specifically in a bit. Roshan, how about you? So you applied for your master's in 2019, correct?
2018, yes, with the 2019 intake.
Yes, correct. When did you decide?
Actually, I was like that child, that those annoying little children who know what they want to do in life. I was one of those. I still am.
We hate those.
Yeah. So I am kind of like that, and I'm actually very blatantly truthful about it, because I was that child who knew in, I think, 9th standard that I wanted to go for my master's. So it was something, that was a financial constraint that I couldn't go for my bachelor's outside. But it was something that was always on the cards. It was something that I always worked towards, like I said, since 9th standard. So almost 10 years in the making, more than 10 years, I think, at this point. I think about 12 years in the making. It makes me sound really old, but that's sort of the idea I always had. I always knew that I wanted to do law. I always knew that I wanted to do a master's. And it wasn't, for me, it wasn't more or less in terms of where I want to settle per se. It was just getting education from one of the best universities in the world. That was always the goal, regardless of the, I know everybody likes to ask this question about return on investment. So I'm just going to, just take a step back and just say that instead of looking at the return on investment, it was just the experience of going to one of the best universities in the world. That is what was very enticing for me, and which is what I always worked towards. So I was sort of that person who always knew that I wanted to go outside. Obviously, the countries, the continent sort of changed along the way. It went from the US to the UK, back to the US, then back to the UK, or UK to US. It just kept changing, but it was always like I had already decided that that's what I wanted to do. I mean, if you want me to address why I decided to work,
I'm coming to the WorkX bit, but this actually makes for a very very sad realization, because Roshan says that she had decided that she wants to do a master's in the 9th standard.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I wanted to do law in the first year of law school. So we have diametrically opposite views, and I think that's also an important lesson, guys. I know that I was actively engaged when Sukriti was applying for her LLM, and we'd had discussions about this, even though I might not want to address specific college discussions that we had. But everyone has their own path. And this is, I want to preface all of our discussions by saying that this is your personal journey to an LLM, to any of the other master's courses that you want to pursue. And while we may be able to reflect upon what we did, that does not mean that that's the only right way to do it. Everyone has stumbled upon the right way in their own journey. These are some guidance that we can provide in terms of what we did. And that's why I wanted to open it out with the primary question as to when do you decide whether you want to do an LLM or not. And in Sukriti's case, it was probably not as early as Roshan's case, but I can give you my example. I decided quite late in life that I wanted to do an LLM. I was, because Sukriti and Roshan have already spoken about this, so I would not be stealing their limelight now. But basically, it was only after I got through a Supreme Court clerkship and I started working with the Supreme Court judges that I realized that this is what I want to specialize in. And remember, back in the day when I was doing my master's, environmental law was not that big a deal. People were still trying to figure out what IPCC stood for. So we have different. I do apologize for the dog in the background. We have different sorts of experiences that kind of culminate into our general experiences. So Kriti, did you have something to add there?
I think you made a really good point when you said that you didn't realize it till the time you went and clerked in the Supreme Court. I think that's a great point because a lot of the time there are things that you don't realize. And I feel one thing that working does for you, or like, just having some time right out of college does for you, is that it gives you time to experience different things and decide whether you want to pursue something or not, which I think is a great way of deciding whether you want to pursue further studies or not.
Yeah. I'll come to the WorkX because I think that's something that all of us, in fact, I get a lot of queries about, even from GPODS fellows on a regular basis, that listen, I don't have any WorkX, I'm just completing my graduation degree, can I apply? And the answer is almost always, you can always apply. The university is not asking you to stop from applying, then you should apply. But WorkX we'll come to. I want to start because I want to up chronology so much here. There's a reason why I'm taking you through the whole process of how this happened. How early do you decide? That may play a factor because remember, when you're applying for an LLM, you're giving them a package in the form of your application. So everything that you've done over the past 3, 4, 5 years has been towards that one degree that you want to pursue at Berkeley or Cambridge or wherever you do. So deciding early has an advantage. I can imagine that Roshan Tara was only doing parliamentary debates and moot courts since she was 13. But that's the deal. You can decide, and that gives you an added advantage. But even if you decide late, like I did, you can still apply. You can still have a decent application. You can connect the dots in your application as to how you've always worked towards this. One of the first challenges when we sit down to apply, again, I don't know why, but suddenly I'm having flashbacks of Sukriti going through these processes. So I'll probably go to her again to begin with this. But one of the first challenges is, where do you want to apply? There's the larger question. I think Roshan also referred to this, UK, US, the dichotomy there. But how do you go about it? How do you choose the, maybe a set of 5 or 10 colleges, whatever you did? What was the rationale behind it? What were the considerations there? Sukriti?
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing to think about. And thank you, Ishan. I feel like I need to address the amount of help that you gave me deciding all of this and figuring out through this process was immense. But
that was the whole point of having this discussion, Sukriti. Now that you've thanked me, I've been waiting on that thank you for about 1.5 years. I think we can get done with this.
But it's been it's a tough decision to make, and I think there's a few things to think about. How I chose was based on the courses that I wanted to do, which were the best universities for that. Berkeley Law being best in tech was one of my top ones. If you want to do IP or environmental law, Stanford's the best for it. If you want to do constitutional law or some other social
comparative law,
comparative law, it's great. Columbia is really good. So it's like different schools. All of these schools are great, whether in UK, anywhere else in Europe or US. Most schools that you will come across are great. It's just that you have to find what resonates with you and the kind of courses that you want to pick. I would recommend looking into faculties. Just find out on LinkedIn who is teaching what. It gives you a better idea of what to expect and what would be the best to study from these people. So that really helps you picturize in your head that, okay, so this is good because this one person that I really like, who I connect with, who I think I want to study from is there. And another consideration to have is, I think, financials of this, because the disparity is insane. US is by far, I think, the most expensive. At the same time, the quality of education is similar in the schools in Europe, but they're probably 1/3 of the price, just because it's how their tuition is. It's not that
it's structured generally.
Yes, it's just how it's structured. It's not that they're bad schools. I mean, Oxford and Cambridge, or even King's College or Trinity College in Ireland, they're really good places. So it's just a really, I think, thinking about the kind of courses you want to do and being realistic about your financial challenges, or like if you have a loan, how much capacity is it that you would want to pay back, how much you can do. Those are important things to think about.
Interesting. In fact, those are a couple of very good points, because, you know, a lot of us, when we're in that application stage, we're thinking of, you know, an X or Y or Z school, and we're not thinking in terms of the faculties. Sometimes we look up alumni profiles that, all right, this is an alum of that school and this is what she's doing, and maybe this is what I want to do. So it's probably best to get in touch with her and apply to a similar school, that sort of a thing. Roshan,
sure.
the same question to you, and building up on what I mentioned and what Sukriti was talking about. Did you prepare, say, a list of, because I know that in my experience, I did prepare a list of, say, 6 colleges that I want to apply to, and I had a backup. So 6 plus 1 was what I had done. How about you? How did you go about selecting colleges in UK and US?
So, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people since I started applying, whether they're alumni of these colleges that I applied to, or whether they're potential in the past 2-3 years that I've since gotten the admissions. I have spoken to a lot of prospective students. What I've realized, one thing is for sure, is that everybody has a different set of priorities, right? So firstly, identify your priority. Now, for me, the priority genuinely was to get the best education at the best university. It was not to settle abroad. I'm being very, very candid when I say this. So if your priority is genuinely to look for a return on investment or something that you want to settle outside for, that's something that you should definitely take into consideration while you're selecting your schools, right? And because that's something that will also help you narrow down also the sort of countries or the continents that you're looking at and what you're focusing on, right? So I think it just depends from what your perspective is and what your priorities are. Now, having said that, I had a very similar approach to Sukriti as well. I knew that I wanted to specialize in international law and human rights because that's something that I have been wanting to do, like I said, since I was in 9th standard. I mean, yes, I am that one annoying child who always knows what they wanted to do. Yes, I know that. I'm really sorry about that. And I know it's sort of not helpful, but I've also met like people who were with me, they didn't know, or they just applied and they got in, right? It's not something that you have to know forever and in perpetuity. I know of people who just applied right out of law school with no idea what they wanted to do in life, but they're doing extremely well. So it has nothing to do with when or how you decide. It's just what are your set of priorities, and as long as you are very crystal clear on your priorities on what or why you want to pursue a particular master's, or in this case the LLM, I think you have your work cut out for you in terms of selecting your schools after that. So it was like a reverse engineering process. So if you know X, how do you get to X, right?
Yeah.
That's how you end up doing, or that's how I end up doing most of my decisions in life. So I knew I wanted a master's in international law and human rights. So I, of course, shortlisted and I also knew that I wanted a degree from one of the best universities. I did not want to compromise on that. That was something that was a non-negotiable for me. So then that's how I started shortlisting. So for me, I actually, if I'm being very honest, I actually did not want to go to the UK, if I'm being very honest. I wanted to go to the US.
Who would, right?
I mean, it was a scholarship, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I genuinely wanted to go to the US, and I applied to my majority of the schools that I applied to. I think I applied to 5 schools in the United States, because that's where I saw myself going. And I just applied to Oxbridge, believe it or not, as a backup option. So, you know, like life works in very different ways than you expect.
Roshan, I think you do realize all of us are starting to like you lesser and lesser with every word that you utter.
No, you will like me more, because you'll see, like, even though I had a plan in mind, the plan never worked out, right? So that's what I'm trying to tell you guys, that you might have a plan in mind and you might want to achieve X, Y, Z things. It's just you go with the flow also. You have backup options. You have a lot of these options available to you, regardless of what you have decided in your head. So you just, just be prone to change. And that's something COVID has definitely taught me. I'm sure Sukriti as well, that you have to, keep changing your plans as soon as you decide. So when I was in third year, I was like, no, UK is the place to go. And I'm like, no, maybe US is the place to go. Then I stuck to US, and then I ended up going to the UK. So it's like I said, like the priorities and how you decide on your priorities and your schools is very personal to you. Like Sukriti mentioned, financial consideration, I know for a fact was a major consideration for a lot of my batchmates who joined with me, right? A lot of people also they left their Howards and their Oxfords only because they didn't get scholarships.
Yeah.
So it does matter, like different set of priorities matter to different people. So if you have a particular priority on looking on return on investment, or if you're looking for settling abroad, then you will have a different set of priorities and a different set of schools. So it just depends on your priorities. That's why I say that, you know, it's not a tailor fit formula. For me, it was best schools and international law. And that's why I stuck to US and the UK.
All right. So there are a couple of questions that come out of what you guys were talking about. In fact, I have two. Let me address the more complicated in my experience of the two questions. Now, let me give you my example of environmental law. Now, there's this course that is run by Lewis and Clark in the US. I'm sure you guys have heard of this. And that's supposed to be the best environmental law LLM in the US. And on the other hand, Stanford University also has an environmental LLM, which is decent, which is good, but probably not rank 1 in terms of what Lewis and Clark has. So this is a dichotomy that I see, which is faced by a lot of us when we're applying. You get a very good course that is probably at a university that is not as big as a Berkeley or a Cambridge. And you get a very good university, which probably does not have, I know in Sukriti's case, tech law, Berkeley was the best, and Cambridge international law is one of the best established LLMs. But if you had to make that decision of a bigger name in terms of university and a better course at probably not as good a university, how would you guys have gone about it? I know you did not have to face that option, but any comments there? What should be the consideration of an applicant? If this is obviously assuming that he or she has got through, but what would you sway towards? A bigger name in university, because we all know that counts for a lot, or a better course?
I think I will sound like, I think every news channel after the results come out for boards and be like, course over college. You're going to a top, like the topmost school, and not liking what you're doing is not worth it. It's just, in my opinion, it's not worth your time. It's not worth your money. It's just not worth, that degree will have no value to you because you won't end up using it, right? You're not working for it, using it to get opportunities or use it as you go along in your careers. So course over university, in my opinion. And I say that I didn't have to make that choice, I think, because life worked out that way. But I thought I was making that choice when, and I'll speak about this more as we go in the chronology of this. But I got through USC, which is a great university, but not the best. I got scholarship there, and their media tech law is also great, but it wasn't the best. And I was ready to go there because of certain reasons. Berkeley was just like, nope, we can't give you a decision right now. Your documents haven't reached us. So I was happy to go to USC and I got through George Washington, I remember, and I think a couple other schools that I can't think of right now. But I'd applied to, I think, 5 or 6. I got through all of them. So I was certain to go to USC because it was generally a better course out of the choices that I had for media and tech laws. So course over college, in my opinion.
Right. Roshan, echoing the same thought?
I do echo the same thought. I know it sounds very pretentious coming from me. I am owning up to that. Hopefully you guys like me a little more now, but I did have similar choices. And like I said, my priority was the United States. It wasn't the United Kingdom, being very honest with you guys, right? But having said that, and I got through a lot of these Ivy League fancy colleges, which have excellent international law programs as well, right? NYU, Georgetown, UPenn, etc. I felt that the course, not just the course, but by who it was taught, where the faculty does matter, the environment also matters, right? There was a culture of international law within Cambridge University.
Yeah.
Regardless of the tag, it was the culture of international law that drew me to Cambridge, and it wasn't anything else. It was a hard, actually, like competing college that I can compare it to was either Columbia or NYU, because it was right in the center of New York. It had a lot of these fancy UN organizations, which is where I wanted to end up at. So that was a comparable sort of option. But I also knew that these colleges, while having that sort of exposure, did not have that culture of international law, which Cambridge University definitely offered, right? So for me, again, while having said and having that tag is important, and I'm not going to deny it for future, but if you want to gain the best out of best in that 1 year that you're there, I think the course matters more than your college, for sure.
All right, point taken. So the general consensus seems that course over college, as Sukriti put it, and I think both Roshan and Sukriti agree there. We have a question. I think Sukriti would be in the best position to answer this because she applied through LSAC. I'm not sure if Roshan applied. No, but you did apply through to a couple of US colleges. So both of you can take up this question. Any specific advice on how to handle the LSAC application process? I find it very confusing. Does the grad school need to send the transcripts to LSAC? So your primary bachelor's law school, does it need to send those transcripts? If they give the transcripts to us in a sealed cover, can we also send the same to LSAC? If either of you wants to.
Yeah, can I do this? Because I love talking about the process of LSAC.
Go ahead.
I hate LSAC with a passion, and I hate it so much so that I demystify the whole process. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys know.
Let me preface this by telling all of you that LSAC is a very good organization and they're very efficient.
That actually simplifies the entire process for your masters. It is a pain to demystify.
Yes, it can be a little confusing when you're
applying, and it seems like a central thing where if you don't understand it, it can become very hectic and very chaotic for you. Which is why if you guys do actually end up thinking about applying to the United States colleges, do definitely go. I have written an entire extensive blog post on this, specifically demystifying the LSAC process, because I know how much trouble I went through. And for me, I was doing it all alone. I did not have any admission counselors. I actually also did not seek or approach. I did approach a few people, but they weren't very it wasn't very helpful to approach certain people that I actually did end up approaching. So I have written an entire post, but yes, they do have to give it in a sealed cover. Ideally, all of your mark sheets should be there, and it shouldn't be of your consolidated marks sheet that we usually end up getting, which is called the transcript in our case. They will give you in a sealed cover. You are not supposed to do anything with that. You can
send. Roshan, just a clarification, because suddenly all of these things are coming back to me, and I am remembering my time. There is some confusion with regard to whether the college should send the transcript.
Yeah, that's what I was getting.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, they will hand you the transcript or whatever you've applied for, which is like the degree or the consolidated statement of marks or your mark sheets that you've applied for. They will give you in a sealed envelope and they'll stamp it across. They will not send it, right? It is your responsibility to send it yourself. All they look for, and genuinely that is what they look for the address and they look for the stamp across the seal. So that's something that you are supposed to make sure that your college or your undergraduate degrees have ensured that that's what is in place. And once that is in place, you yourself are supposed to send it. They will not send it for you. I know I know they say it that the college is supposed to, or the undergraduate degree is supposed to. They will not send it. I'm telling you for sure, they will definitely not send it. You're supposed to send it. Just make sure it is in the sealed envelope with the stamp across the seals, with the address of the registrar, etc., mentioned, which is very clear on the LSAC website as well. But you are supposed to send it yourself. It doesn't really matter because your address will not show up anywhere. It's just a matter of facilitation of the documents. And also something that really I should definitely highlight right now, earlier the better. Please send it as soon as you get it. Do not wait till October. If you have it right now, if you are applying for it, applying for your degrees or applying for your mark sheets right now, please send it as soon as possible. There are many delays. There might be issues.
Guys, this is you should listen to this carefully, because I have known friends who could not get through a specific LLM because their transcripts were still in transition, and LSAC kind of throws its hands up saying that, listen, this is not our responsibility. We are not the ones responsible for this. You were the one, your college had couriered it. We haven't received it. The deadline is approaching. We cannot make exceptions for every second person who's been careless about sending in their transcript. So yeah, it's a very, very important point.
And also, so just like one last question, usually law schools are very lenient because they know LSAC sometimes runs through delays, but don't count on it. Please do not count on law schools being nice to you, because everybody else is on time. If you are not on time, that's going to be on you. So Kriti, if you have any.
This is like a flashback to when I applied, and I say that because I was very lax with my LSAC process. I was just like, it'll happen. They have to send it before the deadlines come through or whatever. No, LSAC does not have to send anything. It will purely depend on when you end up sending your transcripts and your documents to them. So, and I agree with Roshan that time is of the essence. Please use it wisely. So the thing that happened with me was that I got to, I think I applied for 5 or 6 universities, and Berkeley had the last deadline. But because I sent my documents in late, some universities were like, it's okay, we'll wait it out because our process is longer. Berkeley was just like, no, it hasn't reached till end Feb. We can't help it. We just cannot consider your application, which is why I said earlier that I was ready to go to USC, and I'm like, I can't feel bad. Berkeley didn't reject me. I was just stupid to not send it in time. And there are things that will keep you off the timeline. You'll be working, you'll be taking exams, you'll be doing this, you'll be doing that. But I feel like in retrospect, if I had to list down everything on a piece of paper, how you think you want to go about getting your transcripts, how you think by what date you want to get your letters of recommendation in order, just have all of those things and adhere to a timeline and send it, as Roshan said, as soon as possible. It comes from somebody who almost suffered the consequences of it. Please, time is of the essence.
Okay. Excellent points. Also a very good question, Aman. It is something that I think all of us have faced when we were applying. So it's a very relevant question as well. I would also invite Roshan to probably dig out that blog post and share it in the chat box. Some people can use it. All right. We have another question from Ribhav, and this is actually the reason I'm taking up this question, apart from the chronological things, is because I want to discuss and spend some time discussing this. It's one of the most common questions asked. One question is UK and US, the difference in experience of an LLM, one. But I also want us to spend time on the second question. Our recent graduates, either people with no work experience or people with, say 1 year of work experience, as Ribhav has said, are they disadvantaged? What aspects of their profiles should such candidates play up to have better chance? I think it's a very relevant question. We've already spoken about or touched upon the whole concept of work experience, how that kind of adds to your application. So what do you guys think? Where you guys stand?
I would let Roshan take the lead on the first one, because I did not end up applying to UK at all. So I feel like that's something she can address. As far as the second one's concerned, I would say it does not matter. I had batchmates who were judges in Korea and ended up in the same course as me, but there were also batchmates from India and other places who had just come right out of law school and got through. So there's no disadvantage in life ever, as so to say, for these courses, because you have to understand a lot of these universities look at you holistically, like who you are as a person, what your aims are, why you are applying here, what you want to do. And we can touch upon that more as we go through this info session. But there's no disadvantage. Whenever you decide whatever, you've not done modes, it's fine. You've not written research paper, it's fine. Roshan did modes, won them too. I won nothing. or she got some prizes. I had no research papers either. The point is how you present yourself. The point is how you get across your passion in your SOP is important. Please don't think you're disadvantaged in any form whatsoever. That's not a good way to begin the process.
Yeah.
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take the first question first, and I think I can answer Ribhav and Sania's question in the same sort of breath.
Sure.
So basically, the contrast between US and UK LLM approaches. Now, again, priorities, right? What are your priorities? UK definitely has a more academic approach towards all of their academic degrees, and LLM is considered an academic degree, right? It's not considered a practitioner's degree. It is not considered something that will enable you to practice in either of these countries.
Excellent point. I think we can restate this. It is an academic degree. It's not a professional
degree. Please do keep that in mind, right? It is purely an academic degree. Now, having said that, the United Kingdom or like the colleges within England have a very purely academic approach to it, right? What the US offers as an edge, in my opinion, would be they have a more positivist sort of approach to law, which is basically they make sure that you understand the practical implications of law and of what you're studying as well, right? Which I feel in the United Kingdom, while they do discuss it, it's not as intensively ingrained in you, right? So that's something that is definitely like a contrast between the United Kingdom and the United States. That's definitely one of the approaches or one of the reasons why I considered the United States over the United Kingdom. Because I had not only just because I had practiced definitely, but I also was looking to practice, or I was looking to do something with the degree. It wasn't something that I purely wanted to do to enter into academia or to just like a segue to a PhD. Right now, if a PhD and by the way, just having said that, I am also in academia, so like clearly nothing I say makes any sense in terms of what it means, right? So that's what I'm saying. But like, if you want to look for something, a segue into academia or something that, you know, you want to foster academics into what you are doing, and what I mean by academics is purely academic, right? It's going to lack a little bit of what practical implications certain laws and certain courses can actually have. Having said that, Cambridge actually had practitioners teaching a lot of the corporate law courses as well as international law courses. My international criminal law was taught by one of the legal officers who worked in the ICC. So it's not black and white. It's just inclination that I can identify for the United States versus the United Kingdom. Again, having said that, not black and white. It changes from college to college, changes from professor to professor even, right? So it genuinely depends on what you end up pursuing, where you end up pursuing, which is where Sukriti's point of who is going to teach you, the faculty members, what the course is, actually does matter, whatever you say, right? Secondly, United States or United Kingdom does not matter. Work experience really does not matter. In fact, UK schools are, like I said, more academic in approach. They do consider your academic credentials more important versus the United States. In the United States, you can compensate or you can work your way to a degree, but you're not disadvantaged simply because you don't have the required work experience, or you think you don't have the required work experience. I know of a lot of people who, like I said, like since Sukriti and I are from the same batch, we had a lot of people who went straight from law school to Ivy League colleges without any work experience. It doesn't matter. It's just holistically, if that makes sense in your approach or in your application at that point, that's what makes sense. And that's what will make sense to them as well. So even if you're straight out of law school and you want to apply for an LLM, in fact, a lot of UK schools appreciate that more than anything else. So work experience per se is not going to put you at an advantage or a disadvantage, either which way.
All right. Thank you, Roshan.
Just for applications, just for applications, not for like how you learn.
Yes,
just
of course.
It out there, yeah.
So I also, and I probably do agree at least partially with Roshan and Sukriti when they say that work experience, not having work experience does not put you at a disadvantage. Having said that, where I disagree respectfully with the both of them is I do think work experience adds to your profile. And we'll come to the profile. I think that's a segue into another thing. But work experience, you're talking with 3 people who all had work experience before they went for their masters. So while we might say that work experience is not required, and that is absolutely correct, we know of people who got through right after grad school into an LLM degree. But work experience cannot harm you. It can only help your profile. And in that way, I think it's always a good idea to have a couple of years of work ex. And there are various other reasons why you should, because you understand yourself better, you understand your interests better. But even strictly from an application point of view, work experience shows that you have sort of an understanding of the subject that you're applying for. And this also can be used. Work experience, not everyone is a Roshan who has, probably a CGPA of 4 out of 4. So for those of us who probably are not, acing every exam that they've ever taken, and they probably do not have, as Sukriti mentioned, moot courts or publications, you might want to also fill that void through substantive work experience. So it does not do you any harm, but yes, if you're strictly thinking that would that put me at a disadvantage, it wouldn't. But you have a better profile when you have a substantial work experience. So Kriti.
I just want to clarify, like, I am a big proponent that you should work before you go out for masters. I agree with Ishan entirely that I think it helps. It doesn't put you on a disadvantage if you don't have it. Even if it doesn't give you a massive advantage, like in schools in UK, like Roshan said, it does not. Maybe US schools it does. It gives you a little bit of advantage. I just feel like it helps you find yourself at the cost of, sounding cheesy. It does help you figure out a lot of things for yourself, navigate the world before you go out into another country altogether by yourself. So I'm a big proponent of working at least a year or 2 before applying for masters, any sort of masters that is, because it's a great experience to just, it's a great way to experience the world and see what life is like in adult before you move away from home.
I think sometimes work experience can also push you towards an LLM, saying that, listen, I've done this for 2 years. I cannot do this anymore. I need a break. I'm going to go study. So
that's true.
It can work both ways.
That is also true.
I obviously do not speak on Sukriti's behalf when I say this. All right. So one thing that I wanted to address, because I kind of touched upon this when I was talking about WorkX and how that can be used to fill up the gaps in your otherwise not so extraordinary academic profile or co-curricular profile. What do you need in law schools? What do you need to do to have that sort of profile? Is this statement about publications, moot courts, parliamentary debates, are these, or TAing? I do not know if your law school had that option, but if you could TA, would that help your academic profile, co-curriculars, and all of those things? Where do we stand there? Are these things very important, not so important? Do they help? Do they not help?
Can I take this question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because everybody assumes that I have a lot of these extracurriculars. I actually don't. I did not moot. I mooted once in 3rd year, I think. Did a couple of debates in like 1st year. I think I did them mostly with Sukriti, so I don't think I did any of these extracurriculars. I actually interned a lot. I did. I interned, and we have the opportunity of interning throughout our final semester. So a lot of what I actually ended up using in my application was all of my work experience and all of my internships. It wasn't publications, it was not mooting, it wasn't parliamentary debates, it wasn't any of those extracurriculars or co-curriculars, as you might call them. Nothing actually I used in my statement of purpose. Having said that, it's not like I didn't do them, but I did them, but in moderation or like very few. So honestly, if you've not done that in law school or you're still not interested in, it's not something that everybody is cut out for, right? Mooting is something that genuinely never interested me. I was a person who was very averse to mooting. I preferred writing and I preferred working compared to mooting, right? So while, again, desirable skills will never harm you for sure, but it's not that it's these are the only things that will make sure that you stand out. There are other ways in which you can stand out as a candidate, and a lot of it has to do, and again, having said that, I'm not saying that everybody has a clear-cut idea in law school, right? What they want to do, what they want to go, even if they want to do an LLM. But if the story fits all together, that is what matters at the end of the day, right? If you can, yeah, go
That's
ahead.
an excellent point, Roshan, because I think that's also a very good segue into the SOP question that we're getting. So, but let me come to this. I think Sukriti wanted to add to this about whether these publications moot courts.
I agree with Roshan entirely. I interned a lot. I realized after a few failed tries that mooting is not for me. Generally, like having the right team, or just public speaking or whatever. It's just like I just lost interest over the years in it. I did not have any research papers, but I interned a lot. I think I interned every summer, every winter, if possible, sometimes even with college, because that was one way for me to navigate myself, like, oh, what is interesting to me. It was a good way to network. So interning helped me a whole lot. But at the same time, Roshan and I have a dear friend who was, I think, the quintessential best candidate. Won moots, did publications, she interned, she was one of the top rankers as well. So there's no single pathway to this. Use your time wisely. Don't waste it thinking that we'll get through, because everything that you do, or every activity that you do or participate in, will somehow mold your SOP eventually if you think that you want to go out for masters. So think about that, and then take up, like I took up volunteering and interning. So that worked out great for me.
Yeah.
But there are people who did other things, and that worked out for them. So use your time wisely. That's the important bit of it.
So let me again partially disagree with Roshan and Sukriti. I do think that publications, similar to WorkX, publications, co-curriculars, moot courts. I'm someone who I think I did 7 or 8 moot courts during my 5 years, and I had publications. I had to write because this was something at the back of my mind. That again is an advantage. It is not a disadvantage not to have these. But if you have publications, moot courts, especially, if you've won a couple, that's even better. If you've participated in one of the international moot courts, or Stetson or Jessup or ICRC, I don't remember what it was called, but you have these various moot courts that happen, and if you're able to participate there, it does add to your profile. Obviously, it's not a necessary requirement, as you call it in game theory. It's sufficient but not necessary, and that's how you should be looking at these co-curriculars. I know that there's paucity of time, so let me deep dive into one of the most important aspects. How do you write an SOP? What is the starting point? Yes, Sukriti, go ahead.
Can I please take this one?
Go ahead,
I will begin by saying, please do not ask other people for their SOPs. And I don't say that because I don't want to share what I wrote or anything. It's just because I feel like when you read someone's SOP, you try to emulate their language and their style, which is not what admission officers are looking for. These are people who go through thousands of applications in one day, and they know when it's you writing, or it's you writing in someone else's voice. SOP is by far one of the most important documents that you can have. It can make or break your chances. So spend time on it and be true to yourself when you write it. Don't expect that the first draft will be the one that you will send out. There will probably be 10 to 20 drafts before you get the final one. It will take the most amount of work, but it is going to be worth it, because this is the one document that helps you put yourself out there and tell them that, hey, I am good because this, despite all of these things, or because of all of these things, I have decided that I want to come here. And think about it, answer small questions. Think about it in a manner where it's like you're piecing together different thoughts from your mind. Answer smaller questions and then form it into a big whole document. how I went, what really helped me, and I went about it. And I believe me when I say this, I think Columbia was the first school that I applied to. Berkeley was the last. Both the SOPs are very different. Columbia was just outright bad and cringy. I understand why they rejected me. But after that, I was just like, I was not happy with it because I took someone's help on it and it just didn't sound like me. So I understand why they might not have liked who I was. But the approach I took after that was answering smaller questions like, why are you pursuing your LLM degree? What are your short-term plans in the sense of why you want to come to this specific university, or how studying a certain specialization would help you in your, in your short-term goals? Like, do you want to get into academia? Do you want to maybe work for a think tank, maybe work for an NGO, or maybe work for a corporate organization? Just think about the short-term goals and then think about the long-term goals. Does not matter where you want to settle, does not matter what kind of job you want, you end up getting right after that, doesn't matter which country you're situated in. Just like overall in the big picture, how you think that studying this and working towards a certain goal will help you get fulfillment. That's how I structured my SOP after that, because the thing is that you have to understand that it has to be a document. It cannot be just like random thoughts together. It has to be together a good, well thought out document. But starting small was the key in my opinion.
I think I'm glad we recorded that bit, because I think that's one of the most detailed answers you'll get on how to go about an SOP. Roshan, any specific points from your experiences?
Yeah, I actually went the other way around. So it might be contrary to what Sukriti did. And this actually applies to everybody who is not very sure of what they want to do. They just want to apply for an LLM. I mean, while I completely think that you should take a step back and reevaluate why you want to apply for an LLM, but this can also help you figure out actually if you want to do an LLM. And it's actually helped me a lot in my own career decisions that I've taken since then or before that as well. What I actually ended up doing was literally vomiting everything on a piece of paper, right? It was a Google Doc, and I wrote everything I'd ever done. Everything from moots, whatever one moot I did, from research papers, whatever I had written, from parliamentary debates, to obviously my work experience, to all of the internships I did. And there were a wide variety of internships that I ended up doing. While I ended up pursuing a career in law and policy, most of my internships, especially in the final year, for about 9 to 10 months, were purely policy internships, right? So it was sort of a cohesive yet a weird mix. While I was applying for an LLM and not an MPP per se. But I just put everything in a chronological order on a paper in a paragraph format. I basically put my CV in a paragraph format, and then I picked and chose what made sense. If I want to do an LLM in international law, and if I want to do an LLM in human rights or whatever, right? It might be a general LLM in which a wide variety of experience across board, across different internships, across different mooting experiences, across different publications might help. But if you're not looking for a general and rather you're looking for a specific, whether it's in international law or tech law or even environmental law, what makes the best story, right? That is what they're looking for. And it's not like what makes the best story, but what makes you, what makes you tick, right? That is what they're looking for. So while I had done, and I'm not going to deny that I hadn't done a lot of things, but my academic sort of credentials, while great, were not particularly important when I was applying, right? It wasn't something that was very crucial for the application or for the SOP per se, right? It wasn't one of the things that made me like, oh, I want to do human rights because I have great marks. That makes no sense, right? Simply, it just doesn't make any sense. Or I did XYZ policy internship in, let's say,
that's an excellent, Roshan. If I could just quickly interrupt, because I think this requires some stress. A couple of points that Roshan made are very important. Again, good academics, there's no substitute for good academics, but it's not a necessary arrangement that you need to have. SOP is your story. It's not your letter of motivation. It's not your, this is my CV in an essay format. That's not what an SOP is. SOP is how everything in your life has pushed you to a point, or pushed is probably a negative word, but it has made up your mind in a way that Columbia or Berkeley or Cambridge is now almost a natural progression to that story that you're writing of your life, right? So SOP should be, this is what I had done and this is how I figured out that this is what I want to do. And over the past so many years, this is how I've been working towards it. And now that I'm at this stage of my life, I feel like applying to so-and-so is the next step for me. And that's what an SOP is about. I also noticed Ribhav's question about how have the speakers distributed their past, present, and future in their SOP. So how much have you spoken about what you've done, how much you've spoken about what you're doing, and how much you've spoken about what you would be doing. I'll go to Roshan about this. Let me just quickly talk about an important aspect that Roshan was also mentioning. Sometimes when we're in that crazy period where you're writing SOP over and over, one thing that helped me, I do not know if Sukriti and Roshan did this, but I 100% agree with Sukriti. Do not start with a template of someone else, because your story cannot be influenced by someone else's story. It's your story. That's the whole point of an SOP. Having said that, I got my SOP reviewed extensively. I sent it to Arpit, whom you guys met earlier. I sent it to so many other friends of mine who went through it. Sometimes they made changes I did not want to be made, and then I did not agree with those changes. But if you spend enough time on a document, you're able to understand the document a lot better than when you just first wrote it. So those edits and reviews by third persons are not just for the betterment of the document, but for you to understand your document better as well. And that's a very important aspect.
That's an excellent point, honestly. So I ended up I think after my the first one that I sent out, I was really unhappy with the SOP. I got like 2 or 3 of my closest friends who had applied to, they didn't do LLMs, but they did different courses, masters or bachelors. They did it in the US, and they'd gone through the process. See, you have to understand SOPs, no matter what, are similar across the spectrum. It's always going to be the most important document in any sort of application. So just pick your friends wisely, the ones who will tell you, who will call a spade and tell you, hey, this line does not work here. This word is not working here. You need a good support system, and you need people reviewing it for you. Because when you are so close to something, you will not see the faults in it. You will just think, no, but this is my story and it's very raw form. It is who I am. But grammar makes a difference. Spellings make a difference. How cohesive and coherent it is makes a difference. So have third party review it. I get a question a lot of times that do they need to involve an agency or an agent to get through places? And I don't think it's important, because on a Friends in Systems, I had someone get involved with my SOP the first time, and it was a pile of crap, in my opinion. It was, in the end, not me. They made changes and said things that were not true about me, and which is why I think I made the conscious choice sitting in December 20th after submitting my Columbia application. I was just like, this is not right. I sent it out because I didn't have anything better to send it with, but I need to work on it. So you have to see whether, like, you take Roshan's method where you put everything you have on a piece of paper and then you pick up your bits and pieces and tie them together, or you first think about the poignant questions that you think are important to you, and then you fit. So how I went about it was, I thought about a few questions initially, and then I cross-referenced it with everything that I had done on a different document, where it was everything about my experience, and then I cross-referenced it together and see what fit together well. It was like a puzzle for me. So you don't need an agent. If you want to, please feel free. If you feel more comfortable with them, but you don't need another agent. You just need a good support system with people who have good command over language. Even if you have a great command over language, You're too close to the document. You may not see the tiny little things that are wrong or not working out properly. So have people who have good command over language, friends or family who will tell you right as it is that is this working or is this not working. Have those sessions of reviews, debate on why you want to keep something in a document, because what that will do is when you debate a certain point is that you will find if a certain way is not working, you'll find better ways to put it across. Your friends may have some opinion. So use this as a good ground to, just talk about everything and discuss it with your friends why you want it there. Reviews are very important.
And guys, brevity. Brevity is something that you should keep in mind. There's a reason why there's a word limit or a page limit to these things. No one wants to hear about how you went onto the stage and tripped while you were taking that award. No one's interested. You got an award, end of story, move on to the next thing. So remember one thing before I know Roshan has a couple of points to make. Before we go on to that, I want to make this abundantly clear. Do not underestimate the admissions committee of these schools. These people have been, in all probability, doing this for a couple of decades in the least, which means that they can see where you're making up stuff. They can see where you're trying to ride home a point. They can see where you're trying to faff, and hence honesty really shines through in all of those SOPs. Also, I mentioned this at the very beginning. I think it was at the info session. I could be during this LLM discussion as well. Think about everything in terms of demand and supply. You are the supply component of an LLM. The demand component is the institution. Now, what do they require? They require diversity. They require an able thinker, not an enabled thinker. They also require someone who can add to the alumni profile of the school, right? So how do you contribute? And I'm bringing it back to the distribution that Ribhav asked about. Do not spend too much time on what you want to do. Just state that this is my goal and this is how I wish to achieve it through this degree. That's my experience. I could be too old for this. I don't want to use terms that should not be used in a public platform, but the point is that as long as you're able to convince them that your profile would be a very good addition to their alumni profile a year later, I think that should cover it. All right, Roshan.
Okay, so I'm going to disagree with both Ishan and Sukriti. While I completely agree that you should have reviews, do not have too many of them. They're going to confuse you. They're going to confuse your goal. They're going to confuse everything that you are standing for, why you're doing a particular degree. I went to 2 people. That's it. 2 people are the only people who had substantive review or recommendations to my SOP. They're the only ones who saw the bare draft, and they were the only ones who literally saw what I actually wanted to do. The 3rd person was my best friend who literally checked it for grammatical issues. That's it. That's it. Please do not go. I mean, that's my sort of experience. I have experienced less is more. It's also, they don't know you. So go to people, for my, who I went to personally were people who knew me and knew what I wanted to do in life. That was number 1 priority for me. Secondly, people who have either been there or done what you have or what you want to achieve to do, right? So these are the 2 criteria that were very essential to me for reviewers. And the 3rd, obviously, yes, strong command over language, which is where my best friend came into picture. And she basically grammatically sort of sorted or said that, okay, this is not working here. Having said that, please, for the love of God, genuinely, if I give you one advice for an SOP, do not use fancy words. Do not use fancy English. Please, if you read, I'm happy to send across my SOP if you want to see it. But again, I would agree with Sukriti when she says that please do not use that as a template. It is literally the simplest English you can ever find. It is the most basic, like a toddler, if they read it, they will understand it. They do not need to be PhD scholars to understand your SOP. They need to understand why you want to do it or what you have done to that particular point, which is where I'm coming to Ribhav's question, which he says that, how did I divide it? Now, like I said, I was that stupid, annoying child. Sorry, again, putting it out there that I knew what I wanted to do. So yes, my past did play a certain role. But a certain role was 2 lines. That's it. That's all. That is literally that this is what motivated, or this is the triggering, or this is the turning point. That is it. That is all I said. This is what turned me to pursue a particular thing. Then like present in terms of what all I have done to achieve that particular thing, and future in terms of this is what I hope to achieve. This is where the LLM fits in perfectly. So like, I think, I mean, if I could have to put it percentage wise, I think it's 10%, then present is probably 50-ish%. And then you have your future, which is again another 10%. Everything else is just why also, like, you know, why the LLM is also a good fit for you. But obviously do not, like, I agree with Ishan on this, do not harp about, oh my God, yes, they already know that they are a good college and they have a good program. They don't need to be told that. They need to be told why you fit in to that program, right? That's the turning point.
Another thing that I just remembered, I did not know this. So I only speak from, you know, some of the people I've guided during the process. Some people have told me, and again, I just want to be very clear, I did not do this, but some people have told me that, you know, for the lack of a better word, name dropping a professor whose work has fascinated you adds to your profile, because that shows to the admissions committee that you have really gone through their program and you're very interested in that sort of a thing. Again, it isn't something that I did. Mine was a simple story of a person who was dedicated towards environmental law, and Stanford seemed the right position, or Columbia and Harvard also seemed right in those respective SOPs. But the point is that, remember, it is your call. I do not know if Sukriti or Roshan did that. And we have to move on to the recommendation question as well. So any last tidbits about an SOP, guys, about name drop?
I'll just quickly say this. I agree with Roshan, and I would like to clarify that I had 3 people that I went to again and again when I wrote my SOP. It's important for consistency point of view. These are people who may know you. These are people who've seen the first draft. These are people who can help you, probably because they've seen the first draft, help you make it finer. So stick to the same people. You don't need to go to 10, maybe just 2. And please pay attention to grammatics. Please don't use small words like gonna. Please say going to. That's something that I have come across, and it really bothers me, because you have to come across as a serious professional person there. Please don't use layman language like I want to do this. I really want to do that. No,
ASAP is another ASAP. Something. Yeah, no, I know you're trying to save on words, guys, but ASAP is not the way to.
That's not the way to do it.
No, I take my advice back. I meant simple English, meaning English.
Correct.
English. Yes, that's true. And to Ribhav's point of like, you know, whether what percentage should work. There's no percentage. What works for you, what brings your SOP together is important. I did not name drop any professor or anything. It may work for some people.
But you were applying to Berkeley, Sukriti.
I was, but I looked up the courses. So I did not look up the people. I looked up the courses, like there was data privacy laws.
Correct.
And I was like, this is something that I want to study, because this is something that I haven't had exposure to. This is something I want to do. So it could be professor's name. It could be a paper written by somebody on the faculty. It could be just the course. It doesn't have to be just the professor, just something that makes them realize that you went the extra mile to look into what is there in their university.
So Priti, let me interject here, because again, you touch upon a very, very interesting point that is also brought up by Sanya, and we'll come to LOR, guys. I promise. I know that's something that all of us have thought about, cribbed about, waited on someone to upload your LOR when the application deadline is about a couple of hours away. So we'll come to that, but I want to address this thing because you specifically mentioned, and both in each of your cases or in my case as well, we knew that, you know, environmental law, international law, tech law is what we wanted to do. Where is the case for a general LLM? Does it still hold the same what it did? I know that 15-20 years back, general LLM was the way to go. But now you have, you know, law, science and technology LLM, you have an international arbitration LLM, you have a corporate governance LLM, you have an international law and human rights LLM, you have a tech LLM. is there an advantage of a specialization in an LLM over a general LLM? And if not, why would one go a particular way?
Okay, very quickly, because I dealt with this very recently. I think I was speaking to someone about this. It does not give you, a general LLM is not bad at all. It just depends on what your priorities are. Like, for example, in the US, I knew I wanted to do tech law, that's a different matter, but I had friends who were just like, we don't want to do a specific law, and we also want to go back to India. We don't want to take the New York bar or the California bar. So what that did was that it freed up a lot of units for them. They weren't bound by anything. Like, for New York law, you have to take certain procedural classes.
Correct. So just a bit of clarification here, guys. For New York bar, you need to have a few subjects that you have. They give you a range of topics. So you could have the security studies or corporate studies, things that fall within it, and only then can you qualify to take the New York bar. Yes, Supriya.
Right. For California bar, you don't need any. If you're a practicing attorney already in a different jurisdiction, another country, it's fine. But if you are
California bar is a lot tougher to get through than
it is. It is a lot tougher. The pass rate is much lower than New York bar because it is open to all. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is that if you're not enrolled in your home jurisdiction, the restrictions of the New York bar apply to California bar as well. So you are supposed to take some procedural courses like securities or business associations or civil procedure, criminal procedure, constitutional law, whichever. It's like a whole range. So a general LLM is not bad. It just depends on your priorities, what you want to do. Like Roshan here knew she wanted to do international human rights. Fine. I eventually navigated my way to media and tech. I like that. So we pursued those. But I have friends who did a general LLM because they just liked learning a lot. As Roshan mentioned very correctly earlier, was that it's an academic degree. A lot of people just come in to, broaden their horizons with respect to the knowledge that there is to take in on a lot of number of topics. And a lot of these universities offer some very interactive and different sort of courses as well, things that you have probably not heard of. Like one of the courses in Berkeley was Me Too movement and constitutional and feminism in constitutional law. So these are some very abstract courses that you don't really hear about on a daily basis. They're not adding value with respect to, the bars that you have to take. But these are things that may be of interest to you, and they are very general, so to say. So a general LLM is not bad. It just depends on your priorities, what you want to do after that, how you're approaching the LLM. If it works for you, it works for you. There's no straitjacket formula for it.
Roshan, any comments before we move on to?
Just a quick comment. Like I said, Cambridge does not have so many specializations. They have just like international law, IPR. That's it. Like I think commercial is another. And
I think 3 to 4 are generally the.
Yeah, and then you have the general LLM, right? We took the same classes. If you wanted the courses, it just didn't depend on what specialization you were opting for. Like a lot of my batchmates did general LLMs and they're very happy. And it's not, again, it's priorities. Plus also, if the courses excite you, just go for it, man. Like chuck everything else, just go for the courses that excite you and that you want to learn from.
So guys, I have learned my lesson. I shouldn't have made fun of Arpit at the beginning of this session when I told him that, when I told all of you that his internet is not working fine, because my internet has been giving me issues. So I do apologize for switching off the video every now and then. I want to get into 2 questions before we wrap this up. One is about letter of recommendation, because I know that I have given it a lot of thought during my application stage. Obviously, it is also different from school to school. So one thing that I'd advise all of you do, if you're seriously considering applying for an LLM, lawyers do not do Excel well, but I learned Excel only for this specific reason. I prepared a chart. These are the 10 colleges. These are the requirements. In the LLM section of the chart, I had 3 recos are in the recommendation section. This college requires 3 recommendations. 2 of them have to be academic, so on and so forth. So where do you start? Who should you write? Who should write your recommendation? And does it make a difference as to the profile of the person who's writing your recommendation? So Kriti, Roshan, both of you.
Yeah, of course, yes. For letter of recommendations, quick sort of first few thoughts. The profile of the person does not matter. As long as the person knows you and your capabilities, that is what matters, right? Having said that, yes, I had great recommendations. I mean, I understand that, and it may seem me coming from a high horse, but genuinely what matters at the end of the day was not the fancy, oh, you got a LOR from a director, or you got a LOR from the dean or something of your law school. No, that is not what is going to count. What is going to count if that person can testify as to how good or how capable you are to do a particular thing, right? And if they can sort of testify to that, and they should know you on a one-to-one basis, ideally. In an ideal situation, that is who you should be approaching for a recommender. And I also had a very similar Excel sheet, as Ishan mentioned. It was quite intense, too academic, one, and then I would list down, okay, these are my like 4 or 5 people who I shortlisted. These are the 2 who will suit the profile better, right? So definitely, if like I know for a fact that colleges like Oxford and Cambridge require academic letter of recommendation, please stick to it. It is very simple. They ask it, please just stick to it. Just get academic letter of recommendation. It's not that hard, right? Like ask your professors to write one for you, and people who have taught you on a one-to-one basis. Now, what enhances these recommendations are, if they've taught you unless it's a general LLM, if they've taught you a course that you want to specialize in, right? That is something that is definitely an added bonus. Again, does not matter if they are technically in the same sort of college or university. They can have changed their jobs, they can have gone back to profession, they can do anything they want. But as long as a professor or as an academic, they can testify to your capabilities and your abilities, you are good and you're sorted, right? As long as they taught you, basically. It also, another thing that helps is if they can test to your skills and your abilities outside the classroom as well, right? Now, if they've taught you in a classroom, that's the first benchmark done. But if they also know you in like a co-curricular and extracurricular sort of environment, that genuinely does enhance your profile as well as your recommendation all that much more. Now, thirdly, something that's sort of not said, especially for government colleges where there are no ranking systems. I know a lot of national law schools have them because I've taught them. I know that they have ranking systems, and I know, since I am from a government college, I know for the fact that a lot of these colleges do not have ranking systems. Get your professors to testify to your rank in class. And they are more than happy to do it as long as you give them your marks, right? They will testify if you were like, let's say 1%, 5%, 10% of the class, or even 30%, right? It genuinely, especially if you're at that top level, but you don't have anything to say that you're at the top level, getting a recommender or getting an academic or like a professor who has taught you testify to those capabilities goes a really long way. And also professional LORs definitely for the US schools matter a lot more, simply because, again, they have a very practical approach to how they go about it. So definitely professional LORs are equally important, but again, they should be able to testify to what you've done while you were working with them. Now, if you have done, like, let's take an example, which I know for a fact that a lot of people have come to me with this, which is why I'm taking this example. A lot of people who have interned for a month with a judge, they're like, oh, this judge will sound fancy. No. I am sorry to burst your bubble, but they know you for a month. They barely know your capabilities. It would better be coming from a person who has known you, who might not be all that well established in their profession, but who knows how you work, how your work ethic is, and how you have gone about things, right? So while a fancy tag or name is like 5%, maybe 0.5% of what the letter of recommendation should be, it's more about your capabilities and what you can prove through your recommendation.
Yeah.
So
excellent point. I just wanna before, I know Sukriti has something to say, and then Vibhav has sort of like a offshoot of what we're discussing right now. But I just want to kind of stress on this. Having someone who's internationally recognized write your recommendation is always a good thing. But that's not what your recommendation is about. I have personally seen recommendations where a very big stalwart of a particular field has just written a one-line recommendation saying that her performance was satisfactory. And you do not want that as a recommendation. So again, what Roshan is saying is 100% true. The person should be able to show that that person has taken a personal interest in your life and has seen you evolve, or has seen you contribute, has seen you from a point of view where she can recommend you, right? It's not a recommendation that, you know, this and this. There are so many recommendations, guys, where I have seen, and I am on GPODS admission board, and we ask for recommendations. I see recommendations where, you know, your professor has written for you that she used to interact a lot in class, and she was one of the most engaging students, and she used to come up with new ideas and theories about things that we were teaching. It is there in everyone's recommendations. You are not, that recommendation that does not make you stand out. What makes you stand out is exactly what Roshan said. What did you do in a way that that person noticed you outside of the regular, you know, she was the first one to raise her hand in the class? No, that's for everyone. So when you do approach a person who's a stalwart, make sure that that stalwart knows you, you've worked with them. All of these admission committees have been there. As I want to stress on this, they've been doing this for a couple of decades. They know that 1 month of an internship with a judge would not arm twist that judge into writing an immensely successful recommendation letter for you. If you spend a year working with that judge, I'm just taking a judge as an example, but with a law firm partner, a senior advocate, a general AOR, you know, even your professor from law school, it reflects when the person knows you. And that is something that you should be fairly confident about when you judge who would be writing a recommendation letter for you. Sukriti.
I agree with both of your sentiments. It has to be somebody who knows you. It has to be somebody who's seen you work closely. Like my academic LOR was not from the dean or even the HOD of our department. It was from a very junior professor who taught me, I think, 3 classes in the first 2 years of my law school. And I think he knew me outside of the class as well, because I would just go and talk to him about his class and the things that we were studying and things like those. So I made an impression on him, and when I did ask him for an LOR, he was more than happy to write me one. So it's important that it comes from, think about it as a SOP, but from someone else. It's coming from somebody who needs to know you, who needs to know what your strengths are, and can put them forward without sounding phony. If there's somebody who you work with for a month, and they'll it's not just a judge, even like some senior advocate or someone, they are probably not going to write that SOP. It's probably going to be their junior who will write it, and they will sign it. It will come across as something ingenuine. It won't, I guess that's the wrong one. It will not come forward as genuine, I guess. So that's something that you should keep in mind. It has to be something that comes forward as their reflection or their understanding of who you are as a person, what your capabilities are, and it's very important. And in the same breath, I'll take Ribhav's question. And first of all, I want to make clear, when any university says up to X number of LORs, up to is the higher limit. You don't have to meet that. It's just like, because people have the habit of giving extra information, so they try to limit it. I think at my time it was up to 3. So in some cases I gave 3, in some cases I gave 2. If you have worked for say 2 years after college, and you want to only give 2 letters of recommendations when 3 or 5 are allowed, you're good with 2, but then those 2 have to be on the mark and have to be about you, how you stand apart, how they think that you can actually benefit from that course. So put effort into it, put thought into it, go ask the LOR of a person who will put thought into it, who you can trust, who you know will take this as seriously and understand your passion. I was very lucky to find people who wrote with all their sincerity for me. And it's very important the person who's giving you their LOR is sincere as well. You are okay providing just minimum 2 is good. Like Roshan said, most of UK colleges with their academic, they require academic LORs. If they require academics, provide academic. If they give you an option that you can give one professional and they're very clear about what kind of LORs they want, please adhere to that because it's very important. It's their requirement. It's not an advisory. It's mandatory. So
worded as an advisory. Yeah, worded as an advisory, but it's still mandatory. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's definitely mandatory. So you are okay with it. Just provide with what you, just because they say up to 5 does not mean that everybody you've interned with or studied from, you just go and ask them for LORs. No, get 2 solid ones and send those instead of 5 flimsy ones.
All right. Okay, guys, I am also mindful of the fact that we're going overboard by quite some time now. So I will try and wrap this up. I just want to also mention, almost shamelessly as a plug to the GPODS Fellowship, that when we're writing SOPs, and we cover this in our policy writing class, there are what Sukriti mentioned, what Roshan mentioned, the way you approach in SOP are 2 absolutely different approaches. One is we put everything on your paper and then you kind of weed things out and only what remains is what is absolutely necessary. And Sukriti's way of doing it was, the absolutely necessary things go on the SOP first. And these are policy writing approaches, that of reductive writing and inductive writing. And there are some who start penning down things and they come up with things as they go on. And there are some who have to have, say, 15 bullet points and then they can expand on it. So there's no clear way to do this. These are reductive, inducting, so many other comparative writing approaches, which are all justified in their own view, and it depends from person to person as to what you're more comfortable with. So to know more about it, check out the GPODS website, gpods.org. I have a lot of things that I wanted to discuss, but it seems like we have been cut for time. Maybe we can do one of these things soon again. Something that I really want to talk about is placements. And I know that the reason why we have Sukriti and Roshan, apart from being absolute superstars, which I mentioned at the very beginning, is also because we have someone who stayed back in California. Sukriti has. We have Roshan, who always wanted to come back to India. What was the logic behind it? How's that turning out? So maybe in another session, we could take these up. In the meanwhile, please feel free to reach out to us or any of the panelists, and we can probably take up your questions over email or LinkedIn as well. You could look us up. And another thing that I want to discuss is how to make the most of an LLM, because I have also seen cases where it's a short course. So, it flies by and you do not know much about what you did when you reflect on it. So these are things that you could ask us about privately over LinkedIn. You can join the GPODS and we can discuss this in some detail. I'd like to end by thanking all of you. For those in attendance, I know that you waited very patiently for us to talk about things that we have been talking about for quite some time. And also to Roshan and Sukriti, this was most useful. I know that you did it. It was less than a week when I contacted you about this, or maybe a couple of weeks, and you were ready for this, and you're so forthcoming when it comes to helping people out. So thank you for taking out the time. This was actually very helpful, and I wish I had such a session when I was applying for my LLM. But this is what we can do, and this is what we'll keep on doing. So thank you so much for taking out the time, and good night to all of you. Have a fun weekend, and yeah, please do keep in touch. Please do check us out, and thank you, Sukriti and Roshan.
Of course, thank you for having us. This was a lot of fun. I'm happy to talk more about it if there's ever a session like this again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ishan and GPODS. Happy also to help you guys with scholarships. I applied for a ton.
Yeah, that's another thing that we did not cover. We'll hopefully cover that in another session, or you could write to us privately. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, just a quick thing. I don't reply to my LinkedIn messages because there are so many of them. I'm not trying to be like boastful. Just please email. I will get back to you.
Yeah, I'm very approachable on LinkedIn, guys. I treat it as my WhatsApp, so feel free to approach me. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Kriti, you're available on both, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm good on both. I prefer email, but I'm available on both.
All right. Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Bye bye.